Hello, welcome to the Honest Wargamer live battle report with me and Mr. Tom. Can't stop him now, Leighton.
Oh,
Hey,
crap,
Tom.
I've got the chicken fillet in the background again. I didn't realise that it was still here. 1 second, let me just sort this out.
Me and Tom here live from our different respective studios, and we're going to do some, not tournament coverage, but at least game coverage. We thought a fun evening tonight would be watching Nick and John play some 40k and us doing some talking over the topic. Thought it would be a fun little time, so we're going to do that for today. Obviously, apologies to anyone who was listening. We're hoping for a 40k podcast today. That's obviously not going to happen. Big shout out to everyone who's joined us live in the chat. Looking forward to it. It's going to be Dark Angels versus the Death Guard. That's right. Some people would say 2 Chaos factions. I'd say that's an old joke. Don't use that anymore. However, Tom, I don't know how you feel about it. Are you rooting for anyone narratively before we get started?
I feel like we can call this Death Guard versus Death Wing, and then we can just call it Guard versus Wing, which is a much more catchy name.
Way more catchy. Good shout.
I am rooting for the Death Guard because I feel like they're a little bit under the cosh here, but we could talk about that a little bit later. Although they do have an extra play burst crawler, which I was aware of, which kind of swings it a little bit. I do like that. But yeah, hopefully it should be an interesting game, and hopefully Nikos can make this rumble.
Yeah, it is a rumble. Dark Angels versus Death Guard. We've done the reason we're a little bit late because we did a little bit of pre-show chatting about the lists, and we'll look at the list in a minute, and it does look like the Dark Angels. Oh boy, they got some punch to their army list, right, Tom?
Yeah, well, they have more punch than the Death Guard. I feel within the context of this individual game, yes, they are the punchiest thing that we can see in existence. I think we were talking a little bit earlier about who is a beatdown, right? Because that was a big part of your workbook and establishing who is a beatdown. Both of these armies are going to want to have a bit of a scrum in the middle, and I can talk about the objectives when we can see them, but that'll be for when we bring that up. But the Death Guard are going to walk into the middle, and they have their own like damage steroids, but the Dark Angels don't really care about them as much. They've got the built-in transhuman, so the toughness doesn't matter as much. They also have the weapons that are able to carry over the damage, which although means it is impacted by the -1 damage multiple times, I mean, you're still able to efficiently and consistently get through those Death Guard. Whereas the Death Guard care a lot more about those damage steroids that they need, and the Dark Angels just don't care. So I'm looking forward to seeing if Nikos can do something that's a little bit more creative in this game, rather than just trying to run straight into a brick wall and just get meated by this Dark Angels army.
We'll look at the list in a minute. I just want to say hello to everyone in the chat. Neil, Tibbles, Evil Cat, Northerner. Hello, everyone, for joining us live. Chucklebutty, hope you're well. Yeah, you're right. It's going to be pretty fun. I'm very much looking forward to it. Let's go. Let's have a look at the lists while the guys are still setting up. Let's go over to this now.
Who do you want to look at first, mate?
Well, I'm going to look at the Death Guard list because we talked about it.
Sure thing.
It's called I'm going to take 19 Poxwalkers, like it's 1999. That's the name of the list. It's a very long list name. I'd argue too long, and I don't want him to use list names this long before. So I'm just going to go through it quickly. Both of them are Mortarian's Anvil lists. He's got a Lord of Virulence, who is the Warlord, and he's obviously got that pathogen, Vicious Death, but he's also got the Gloaming Blight, which is you can't reroll to hit and to wound around his aura. Not forgetting, obviously, we're looking for that 2 CP stratagem to get spent, breakout, to have that spent put onto another unit somewhere on the board. So no rerolls to hit and rerolls to wound. Not 100% certain that's really going to affect the Dark Angels list, but that's in there. Then there's a unit of 5 Plague Marines. They've got a Blight Launcher and a Plague Spewer. There's 19 Poxwalkers, not 20. Then there's one. Yep. Yeah. Then there's one of the 2 bricks of Terminators. 10 Blightlord Terminators in there. They've got 2 of them have got flails. 2 of them have got plague spewers. Most of them have got axes. They're going to axe a question: can I murder these Deathwing Knights? And the answer will probably be no. The Plague Surgeon, obviously, he's got that bubble for the 6-up DPR around him. Then it says on the list there's 1 Plague Burst Crawler, but I know that there are actually 2 Plague Burst Crawlers. Our graphics man did this quite quick, so that's what we got going on there. So then there's another patrol, Lord of Contagion. He's got the CP upgrade, so he can take a Warlord trait as well. He's got Arch Contaminator, so that's going to be those reroll to wounds. He's got 2 units of 10 Plague Marines, and those are kitted for combat. They have all of the weapons. It's all of the special weapons. They've got cleavers. They've got maces. They've got flails. which are -1 to hit, which we'll talk about more later. So both those two units of 10 Plague Marines are kitted out to heaven, or to hell, I guess, or wherever you want, the Garden Nurgle. It's a TTS game, obviously, because of COVID, Neil. There's a unit of Blightlord Terminators, same mirror, the one that's in the other patrol, and then 2 Chaos Rhinos, which I imagine those 2 units of Plague Marines are in. Tom, you got any thoughts on the lists?
I feel like there could be a way that he could actually whack through a lot of these Terminators, but he needs to do it in a way. He needs to bait Scrivo in a little bit. So it's definitely very, very doable. I mean, with secondary objectives like while we stand, while we fight, you've got a lot of options there just for keeping it alive. Just because even with the Dark Angels being a little bit stronger at removing things, it's still not easy to remove 10 Blightlord Terminators, especially if you like make them compact in a brick that just walks forward. Where you're consistently getting to hit with a lot of guys. So yeah, it's very consistent secondary scoring over here. We're going to see how it does.
Many of you noticed that I have put the title as Dark Angels versus Blood Angels. That is me probably getting some sort of mental problem. And it's Dark Angels versus Death Guard. I will change that at some point.
Can I change it, actually?
Yeah, I'll change it, don't worry.
I'm going to see if I can. I want to see how far my mod powers extend.
Well,
not that far. That's unfortunate.
Let's look at the next list. So, do you want to talk us through this?
Yeah, sure.
The next list, the Shield Wall, but in white.
So it is the Shield Wall, but in white. We have got a Vanguard detachment run by Scrivo. He's taking the Deathwing Apothecary. It's a cheap, I would say a chief Apothecary. I actually said cheap, which it is also a cheap Apothecary, especially considering it can heal twice because he's been given the Chief Apothecary role. You've also got Azrael in there as the Warlord. Azrael can then lob out 4+ invulnerable saves within 6 inches. Not wholly within, just within. Perfectly fine. We've got a Chaplain in Terminator armor as well, not in the standard bike, but he does have a couple of modes that you can use. So the first one being that you can use the Litany of Hatred, which allows you to reroll to hit in melee for core units within 6. Yes, for Deathwing Knights of core. And you also have the Mantra of Strength, which turns him into a crackhead, which gives him +1 strength, attacks, and damage on his melee weapons. So when he's walking up with his brick, you can either reroll to hit with all the stuff around you, or you can just whack stuff right hard, which I'm sure the Chaplain is a fan of. You've got a Definite Wing Command Squad. They're quite small. They have got 2 Thunder Hammer Storm Shields, and they have 2 Lightning Claws in there. So I believe that is a 4-man squad, but I'll have to check. Now it looks like it's a 5-man squad over here somewhere. I'd have to find them. They may have been deployed. Anyway, whatever. We've got 2 squads of Deathwing Knights with Watchers in the Dark. They're pretty big, beefy boys that we'll be talking about a little bit later. And you've got a squad of Deathwing Terminators. They have an Assault Cannon in there. I believe they may all have Assault Cannons, so that's a lot of shots. But it also means that they are all objectives secured in that detachment. And the patrol, Scrivo is running a Raven Wing Talon Master, which allows you to get +1 to wound against certain targets with a stratagem. He's got a squad of 10 a squad of 10 intercessors with auto bolt rifles. And then you've got a Leviathan Dreadnought, because of course he does, especially with that hashtag, and a Redemptor Dreadnought with 2 Storm Bolters, a Macro Plasma Incinerator, because Dark Angels love their plasma, and Onslaught Gatling Cannon. So you've got a lot of little units there. You don't really have massive bricks. You have a couple of mini bricks there. You have squads of Deathwing Knights. You've got that squad of Terminators in there as well. And then you can just like castle all that around your Chaplain, your Apothecary, and your Azrael and just walk up the board. So we'll have to see if Nikos can breach that, because I really feel like both of these just going to be whacking each other with fish.
Yeah, Tom, I absolutely agree. I think some of the things that I really like about this list is the fact that up against the Death Guard army, obviously their toughness is going to be reduced, but that means nothing to this army. And then that +1 to wound means not only does the -1 toughness from the Death Guard as a feature come in and do nothing, they flip reverse it. I think one of my favorite things about this list was that we decided not to take the psychic power to remove obsec from units within 24 inches. Like, it's a pivot for the army list building for not Raven Guard. Sorry, they're all the same to me, to be honest. Dark Angels.
I don't know even. They've all got similar names. It's fine.
So Oripa says 2 anvils grinding together. I think, I'm going to cut over to the game. We'll talk about this. You're right, Oripa. There's absolutely going to be 2 anvils pounding against each other. This is absolutely something that we're going to see. However, I think that's an interesting conversation. Ultimately, we're playing the Scouring, by the way. So for primary objectives, it's hold 2, hold 3 for 5 and 10. So if I've said that too fast, I apologise. You've got to hold 2, and then that means you'll score 5 VP for the primary, or you need to hold 3, and that'll score you 10. And then obviously there's always the hold more, which is different. And there are 5 objectives on the board, as you can see there. Ultimately, 40k is going to be so much about these stonk units that can hold objectives, Tom. That has to be what the game's about. Combat focus, massive at the moment, and super important. It has to be a major conversation for every army list that we see playing at the moment, right? So yes, this is going to be 2 grindy armies grinding against each other, but really, that feels like that's the consistent part of the game. That's how the game is going to play going forward.
I mean, when you look at those games and you think it's going to be quite even on primary, you often end up going down to the secondaries, don't you? So, for example, you see maybe these Blight Lord Terminator is going to walk up, stand on this objective on the left, and then another squad's going to be placed on the other side, stand on that one on the right, and then everyone's just going to kind of stare at each other and not really push each other off, and then maybe someone overcommits to the center and gets killed and gets whacked. But at that point, you're basically handshaking primary because you feel like you probably have a game won on secondary. But if we look at secondaries, both of these armies
for you guys to see.
Yeah, both of these armies have while we stand, while we fight. So for the Dark Angels, that would be the Leviathan and the 2 squads of Deathwing Knights. And for Nikos, that would be the 2 Blight Lord Terminator units and 1 squad of 10-man Plague Marines. We then have Razor Banners for both sides, which they're probably going to get 2 objectives each pretty consistently, because I feel like it's going to be quite easy to stack this objective if your opponent goes to it first, because that unit then gives you the ability to get some extra movement to charge on, whereas if there's nothing there, it's a little bit slower. So then it comes down to, let's say they handshake those, who has a better faction secondary, because they've both taken one. So Nikos has gone for the spoiled ground, which is basically you walk over and take a poo on an objective, and for every objective you've taken a poo on, you get 3 points at the end of the game. So to get 15 points...
Is that how it's written inside the codex?
Yes, it's exactly what it says. So for each of those objectives that you poo on, you basically need to put on all 5 objectives to get you 15 points. Scrivo has Stubborn Defiance, which is basically you pick a unit, you pick an objective, and you can effectively get 15 points if you stand that unit on that objective for the entire game. So it looks like it may be Scrivo, but it has an easier time getting for 15 points on that faction secondary, just because if you just park a unit on an objective, you'd be fine. Yeah. But Nikos has to get on all these objectives and hold them in movement phases to get those 15 points, and that implies that he's got to have some kind of ability to bully Scrivo around, which I don't think he can really do in this game, to be honest. I think that's quite a tricky thing to do. Although that said, there are a couple of avenues that you could probably attack these secondaries. With the while we stand, while we fight, I feel like Nikos are probably harder to get off him. It's much easier to remove a squad of 5 Deathwing Knights than it is to remove a squad of 10 Blight Lord Terminators. That said, it's not easy. You've got a lot of stratagems that make it very, very hard to remove these Deathwing Knights. It can be -1 to wound. They can prevent you from fighting unless you're exactly within engagement range. They've got built-in transhuman, and you are Death Guard, so you're not the hardest hitting army in the game anyway. But
so hold on. Let me stand for my boys for a moment there, Tom. I need to build up the drama. Nick's doing some terrible driving there with some rhinos. That was a disaster. So this unit, now the Blight Lords, Terminators versus Terminators, I hear what you're saying. They're in tactical dreadnought armor. They should be survivable, and they'll also dish out a punch. However, I need to stand for my unit of 10 Plague Marines. Nick has put all of the toys inside there. So there's cleavers, there's maces, there's there's the axes, there's everything. And there's a couple of good stratagems in there as well, specifically because they're also armed with plague knives in addition. So you're going to have +1 attack to all of those. So it's a lot of special weapons. It's going to be really... I mean, ultimately, it feels like the Deathwing ability to just only be wounded on 4s feels very unengaging when you've built a list and you're like, cool, I've got all of these cool weapons and they do nothing. But either way, there's some good AP on those close combat weapons, and which is obviously going to only take them to their invuln save. But there's a lot of them, Tom. There's like a lot of them. So yeah, there's a lot of wounds that can come out of that unit of 10 Marines. Now, when they get slapped back, and Twitch chat, can we get some slap back in the chat? When they do get slapped back, it's going to hurt. But I think, like you said, they might. That unit of 10 could easily punk out one of those unit of 5 Terminators. I really do feel that. And then he's got those 2 units of 10 Blight Lords. So while I think he loses the fight toe to toe. He's got like 2 waves, really. He's got the 2 units of 10 Plague Marines, and then he's got the 2 units of 10 Blight Lord Terminators. And those guys are going to be able to like hit them in different kind of like waves. And I think that's going to be a real positive. Where he loses out is he doesn't have the fire output that the Dark Angels army have. Obviously, they've got that Leviathan Dreadnought. They've also got the Redemptor Dreadnought as well. And that's going to put some pretty good hurt out at range, ultimately. And I think that is where we're going to suffer, because those Playburst Crawlers, they're going to hurt nothing. They're going to hurt nothing this game.
They do hit on 3s now, though, Rob. They do hit on 3s.
They do hit on 3s, and you can upgrade one of them, so he's going to be firing. He's going to be firing and doing 3 damage. But it's not a lot. It's not a lot of output long range. Ultimately, not versus Redemptor and also obviously the Leviathan, right?
Yeah, I mean, one of the main issues you're going to have is you've talked about all those attacks, but it's going to be about bringing it to bear to just whack one of these squads really, really hard. It's already very, very difficult because the Deathwing Knights can spend 1 CP on a stratagem to prevent you from fighting unless you are directly in engagement range, which makes it hard to bring as many attacks to bear. I have no idea what Nikos just did with that Rhino, but okay then. You've also got a bunch of craters scattered across the board. They are -2 to your movement and charging, which makes it very, very difficult for an army that's already slow. So what I want to see Nikos do is try and bait Scrivo into taking one of these Deathwing Knight squads and trying to go for that 10 point on the primary, just by getting him to stick one of these units into the center. Because if he does that, then Nikos can suddenly go, I'm jumping off this objective on the bottom right, I'm dropping off this objective on the bottom left, and I'm just going to charge both of those units directly into your Deathwing Knights. I'm going to push my Rhinos up onto these objectives just to cover them for me, and I'm going to eat them. And that way, you've now trying to gain 5 points by holding on more objectives. You've just lost 5 points, and you've lost the ability to then push me off later on when it comes to this objective, because you've just lost half your Deathwing Terminators.
Yes, very exciting to see how this goes. Twitch chat, I want to know how you guys feel about this match. I know Tom Whitbrook, who's been furiously painting up his Death Guard, is a little bit concerned for his Death Guard force. I can absolutely understand that. Forex, Shinehawk, hope you're all well. Let me know who you think is going to win. I know there's a lot of the Scrivo fan club in the chat. I got to say, Tom, there's no way I'm rooting for the Dark Angels. I'm a Death Guard boy through and through.
We both want Nikos to win, don't we?
We both want Nick to win, but mainly I want Death Guard to win. That's where I'm really at, ultimately. So looking forward to this. Looking forward to see how those primaries affect the game.
Yeah. Before the chat make their all-important prediction, I do need to correct the secondaries a little bit. Nikos is not running the good secondary. Instead, he's running the meh secondary, which is I am going to run engage in all fronts backwards, which is like the Death Guard version, whereby you score your engage in all fronts at the end of the game. So there are 4 ways for you to score points: by standing in deployment zones and standing in different corners of the board. So the first one is you get 4 victory points at the end of a battle if you have 1 or more bubonic Astartes units wholly within your opponent's deployment zone. Second one is 4 victory points. They're all 4 victory points. 4 victory points for having at the end of the battle if you have 1 or more bubonic Astartes units from your army wholly within 3 different table quarters. Third one is at the end of battle if you control more than half the number of total objectives on the battlefield. And the final one is score 4 VPs at the end of a battle if the objective marker, if every objective marker on the battlefield is within range of a contagion ability. So basically, Nikos needs to exert some control over this board, and I think he's got a great window to do it because he is going first,
he
has the movement to push all this stuff up into the center of the board.
Turn one, we have seen the dice roll for turn 1. It's gone to 4 to Nick and a 1 to the Dark Angels, which is John. And then the follow-up to this, obviously, is that because of the changes since the FAQ, the 40k FAQ, this means that Nick is having to go first. Whether or not he didn't want to or did want to, he's having to go first. So he's going to get to make some aggressive first-turn plays or play defensively. I think that's kind of a big question. Yeah. Let's talk about the terrain a little bit, Tom. Talk to me about that. Talk to me about that terrain. It's a WTC format board, right?
Yeah, it is. So what this allows you to do is it allows you to hide quite well in your deployment zone because you've got 3 decently sized ruins in here. The problem is, in the middle of a board, you don't really have that option, especially in a hammer and anvil deployment, because if you look at the size of these L's in the center, There is one side of the L that is decidedly longer, and that is if you are facing each other in a Dawn of War style, the side that would be facing you. As you are facing each other in a Hammer and Anvil, you are facing with short board edges. So if you walk into that center, you're probably going to get hit by some fire there. But that said, Nikos is going to take the Blight Lords. He's advancing those up onto that objective. And as we said, look at how he's hanging these models out here. So this is good micro. This is really good micro because you've got this little Blight Lord with Plague Spear up here. They're both in the top left, which means that they're very, very close to the central objective if John decides to push on it, right? And as I was talking about earlier, if John decides to push into the center of that board, there's a decent charge range there. I can't measure it because I'm only a spectator in the lobby, and also if I weren't, I'd see it. But that is good micro because it gives him the option to then push onto that objective, and also you're not going to be going for any of that crater.
No, so there's lots to break down there from what Tom said. Tom, a lot of people in the chat wondering what you mean by micro. Not forget, just a quick one before you do answer that. Just let everyone know there's nothing off the board. I don't think it, although there should be another 10 Terminators somewhere else. So I'll double check from our table boss that there isn't 10 Blight Lords off the board, because I feel like there is. But he tells me there's not, but I don't agree.
It's not acceptable. That's fine.
Okay, all right.
We'll have to find out whether Blight Lords have gone then, because
yeah, perfect. But anyway, Tom, talk to me about micro.
Yeah. So the difference, micro you often see talked about in terms of tactics. The best way to talk about it is macro is strategy, micro is tactics. Strategy and macro is effectively your whole game plan, your holistic idea of how you're going to play the game. And when I say that, I mean things like Nikos's plan may be to try and bully Scrivo off the board and hold as much of the board space as physically possible to get a lot of these secondaries that he's written down, because he feels like he can do that, and therefore that's where his points are going to be. So that is his game plan. That's his strategy over the 5 turns. His micro and his tactics are his way of achieving that. So that's like little movements, or the way you use like an individual unit. Those are micro and tactical movements rather than strategy, right? Strategy is very difficult to teach. Micro is a little bit easier, but it's one of those that comes with experience rather than anything else, right? So when I say this Blight Lord Terminator unit is placed very, very well because of how it's specifically shaped and what it is close to, in anticipation of Scrivo's movement, that is me talking about its good micro, because he has placed it in a very specific and individual way rather than it being a part of the whole game plan.
Okay, there we go. I'm just looking at some fire lanes here, Tom. I think there's a lot. There's a lot to break down. This unit of Blight Lord Terminators in no way scared of the Leviathan Dreadnought, and of course also the Redemptor Dreadnought, which are eyeballing it across this crater here. Yeah. Being really cautious. So being really cautious with these rhinos, which I think makes absolutely loads of sense. As you can see here, a very thin line of sight to be able to draw between the Leviathan Dreadnought and this rhino here. The other rhino, which is moving up, is advancing. Unfortunately, we've just heard we've already got a CP off the board. We've had a CP spent to turn this rhino advance from one.
He's is that an advance, or is he having a reverse? I feel like smoke launches might be needed to get rid of the reversing lights there, but yeah, there we go. So this is it again. He's placing the very tip of that rhino on the edge of that objective, just try and stay as out of range of as much random crap as possible, so he doesn't get shot by it. That said, we've got a lot of guns here, actually, really. You've got a Leviathan Dreadnought, you've got this whole Deathwing Terminator squad.
A lot.
With this assault cannon. I mean, it's just one assault cannon, not the 5 I thought it was, because I can't read. And even the intercessors over here, and the Redemptor Dreadnought as well. So you've got a decent amount of stuff here. But you were talking about how Nikos isn't really scared of the guns, and I think Nikos may well be scared of the guns, but he can't really show it, because if Nikos shows it, he would do so by standing off. Whereas Nikos needs to push forward. He needs to get that prio on the board. I
agree with you absolutely. I think also, Tom, one of the things that you have to look at with this actual battle plan here, or this mission, with this mission, if you look, normally his 2 units of Plague Burst Crawlers at the back of the board, super important for being able to hold home objectives. They've got those Plague Spitters, so they'll be able to do a whole bunch of work for just controlling board space and keeping those back objective safes. There are no back objectives. Really interesting to see how those particular units are going to play into this mission, because they can start to threaten, I think, the two objectives in front of them. Plague Spitters are pretty decent. Not maybe for clearing out these Terminators that we're facing. I think this is the interesting conversation about this battle. Is you've got Terminators and Plague Marines, and you'd think, wow, those are super tanky. Obviously, discussing resilience and all the other buffs that we've got for survivability here for the Death Guard. Unfortunately, for some reason, the Dark Angels are even tankier. They're an even more furious force, and it'd be interesting to see what weapons that normally would have some impact, even those Plague Spitters are something to be feared and worried about to some degrees, especially if you can bring both of them to bear onto a single objective. However, you're not going to be able to do so, and so because of that, there's this interesting matchup of two walls just beating each other up, and it's going to be fascinating to watch that happen, right? I think, I think, like you say, I think Nick has to get the favorable combats, whereas John with his Dark Angels is absolutely able to just push into an objective and I guess take the charge, really.
Sorry. So I was going to make a point about how Nikos is pushing up with both of his rhinos, which I believe contain his very choppy Plague Marines, which gives him a lot of threat onto this middle objective that we're talking about. But I was instead looking at how Nikos was lying down his Poxwalkers across the top of this ruin like they were in Skegness. I'm not entirely sure what's happened here, but it's given me flashbacks to Croatia 2018, where we made a Gene Stealer cult bridge of 20 Gene Stealers dangling between two ruins, and then someone posted my picture to the competitive Warhammer subreddit, and people thought we were cheating. So that's just given me some flashbacks there. Not gonna lie, but even then, you've got these Blight Lord Terminators pushing up. You've got very good security over both of these objectives here as well, because if you actually look behind them, on this left-hand side, you've got Rhino, guys inside Rhino, Plague Marines behind it, and the Plague Burst Crawler. That's a lot of stuff that you have to remove if you ever want to take that off him, unless you want to just walk over and just beat him over the head until it's yours. In which case, have fun with that. You're probably going to get countercharged. On the right-hand side, you have slightly fewer units, if you excuse the characters, but we should probably include the characters, to be fair. So you've got Blight Lord Terminators, Rhino, guys inside Rhino, Plague Burst Crawlers, Poxwalkers, 2 characters. That's a lot of stuff. You're not going to remove all of that. It looks like we're already into the shooting phase, though. The Plague Burst Crawlers are having a bit of a shoot at the intercessors.
So Tom, we have moved into the shooting phase right now, and this Plague Burst Crawler that we can see back here, it's got no rerolls. It doesn't have any rerolls available to it, and that is shooting into our unit of 10 intercessors across the board. That unit of 10 intercessors, actually, we talked about this before a little bit, Tom. We think quite important actually in the Dark Angels list, because the secondary that we are going to be seeing coming out of the Dark Angels, of course, is going to be Stubborn Defiance. We're pretty certain that a unit of intercessors is going to be scoring it on the objective. So maybe he's looking for those early plays. And ultimately, it's the easiest thing on the board to kill. Everything else is nails harder. It's really interesting when you get to 10 intercessors and you think, yeah, I'll shoot at the squishy lads.
So they've actually got transhuman physiology, which Scrivo spent 2 command points to pop on them, and they've got a 4+ vulnerable save thanks to Azrael. So they're not going to be taking too much damage at all. But the fact that Nikos has decided to pick them as a target, and the fact that John is so scared of them dying that he's popped that transhuman, makes me think that they are indeed going to be the target for that Stubborn Defiance. But I'm sure we'll find out soon, so we can just double check that. But I think that's correct. Got a couple of wounds coming through now onto those intercessors. Looks like we might lose one.
The first Plague Burst Crawler, Tom, actually shot and failed to do any damage at all. It's the shots now coming in from the second Plague Burst Crawler, looking to shoot in, we've done a total of 1 intercessor, which is a bit of an issue because one of the issues that we have for this Dark Angels army is not only is it super survivable, but Tom, they brought with them a medic. They weren't messing about. They wanted to enjoy the game, and they were like, "Cool. If you kill one of my lads, who are basically indestructible anyway, we're going to bring one back." So that intercessor that we've seen die there, the chief apothecary is already next to them, and he's going to be able to bring one of those guys back. However, so not only could he gives him that DPR, he's also going to be able to bring him back next turn. So that shooting phase has achieved a grand total of 0.
Not only that, Rob, he's going to bring him back and then heal him. Which is gonna... So he's going to get everything back, which is a big problem. And it looks like with that slam dunk on top of that Intercessor's massive dome, that's going to be the end of Nikos's turn. But he has achieved stuff here. He has got threats down onto that middle objective. He's also got threats onto these back objectives too, but I don't think he wants to go for those straight away. Although this objective here, on the top right-hand side, Scrivo's bottom left, is looking a little bit vulnerable from Scrivo's deployment. Look at what he's got close to it. He's got one squad of Deathwing Knights on the left-hand side here.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a Redemptor Dreadnought here, and you've got a very lost Watcher in the Dark behind that Redemptor as well. So, okay. So what Scrivo has done with that secondary, he hasn't actually picked that Intercessor squad. What Scrivo has instead done is he's picked the squad of Deathwing Knights in the center for this right-hand objective. Now, I don't know how fast those Deathwing Knights are, but I feel like they might be a couple of turns behind in terms of being able to score 15 points, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but I'll just quickly explain how it works again, just for clarification. In Scrivo's next command phase, he will count how many turns his unit that he has selected has been on the objective he selected, or how many command phases. In Scrivo's next turn, he will have been on there for 0 command phases because he will not be in range. In Scrivo's turn 3, it will have been on there for 1 command phase, which means that it scores literally nothing. Then in Scrivo's turn 4, it will be on there for 2 command points, which means Scrivo will get 2 points. And then in Scrivo's turn 5, it will have been on there for 3 command phases, which means Scrivo will get 3 more points. Which means I think Scrivo is going to end up scoring 5 points from this objective, which is a loss of 10 points. I don't know how you feel about that, Rob.
Not good at all. Obviously, this is just a mess around between a group of mates. We're obviously doing the stream. We're doing some practice coverage. It's super fun. I'm enjoying myself. However, at a tournament, one of the key factors is going to be maxing all primary and secondary points. And I think I chose this mission. And I think the reason that I did choose it was because I think it's actually quite an interesting one. This isn't score 1, get 5. This is score 2, get 5. And you've got to score 3, which does mean you do have to fight over that center objective, or you have to roll a flank quite hard as well. And ultimately, I quite like this about all the battle plans. When you do talk about units just in a vacuum, it does very little. However, watching these have to engage across the tabletop, I think, is going to be interesting. And as you can see, one of the criticisms, I think, of both of these two armies would probably be mobility. Now, of course, Dark Angels can take a bunch of bikes or speeders or whatever they want. Like, as we can see, we've got this Talonmaster here. So they do have some faster units, but a lot of the buffs, weirdly, for the Dark Angels seem to have gone into these Terminators, and, they seem to be a super strong element, right, of this Dark Angels force. So obviously playing to the strengths of the army, that's what John's done here with his army. However, that isn't playing into the strengths of the battle plan. What I like about Nick's list is he's got some genuine mobility here. He's got these 2 Rhinos with his big combat blocks, and even the Plague Burst Crawlers. So he's able to be aggressive early and also threaten some long range, not long range aggression. He can threaten some heavy pushes, which I think is actually fairly unique. Like right now, he's going to be able to bring the Blightlord Terminators and the Rhino that is over on either of the Rhinos actually. He can bring any of them into the center, and he's threatening the center with 3 units, huge blob of 10 Blightlord Terminators and 2 fully tricked out units of 10 Plague Marines. And I think that is really interesting, because just trading up to having those Rhinos in his army, maybe dropping down from having Blight Lords, he could have had another unit of Blight Lords and played the same game that John has done. But instead, what he's done is he's gone, right, mobility is always going to be an issue in these missions, and this is going to give me more options. And I think that's actually really exciting to see, because John, as you can see, he's moving ponderously towards 2 objectives. He's not getting anywhere near the middle. He's not threatening it at all.
Yeah. I mean, in fairness, John with the secondary, I feel like the mission isn't like massively kind to him just because none of the objectives start in his deployment zone. But at the same time, like you need it's one of those where you need to be prepared for it, right? And I see why he's doing this. He's seen the Blight Lord Terminators are on the top left. He's seen that one of the Rhinos is with them. Nikos is very heavily stacked to his top left side, and therefore he wants to go for the objective that's furthest away from it. But what it looks like he's doing right here is he's rotating the board. Whereas what we were talking about when we were talking about these two anvils hitting each other and who wins, he needs to not be scared of this, mate. If he does this, Nikos is going to push onto this objective in the bottom left. He's going to push into this center, and he's going to go, these are mine now, try and push me off. And he's giving Nikos that space that allows him to then sit there first, and then Scrivo needs to come and push him off. And that is not going to be something easy to achieve. And he has to push him off because we've already lost 10 points here because of how the secondary with... let me just get my notepad up. Stubborn Defiance has played out, right? So we are now moving these Deathwing Knights over to that side. He is a little bit further up, but realistically, you wanted to be able to shove all these Deathwing Knights straight down the middle here and say, right, if you come onto this center, I'll have you. If I go into it, maybe you'll have a go at me. Maybe I can just try and block you off, and then I can go for the center, and then you can have a go and swing at me and see what happens.
Well, sorry, Tom. Just to jump in really quickly, I think this is one of the reasons we see Harlequins do so well, and also I think that there's going to be some units in 40k, and I'm very excited to see the Drukhari book activate, because I think actually their ability to throw some very cheap, fast units, just throw them on and be like, cool, I'm here. Yeah, and then their opponent be like, cool, the only way I'm going to take that is if I take them off and then prepare the counter charge. It's one of the reasons I really love 40k. I feel like it's super focused around these objectives, and it does mean that there's loads of counterplay, and it all goes all the way back to list building. Being able to understand that you're going to want to move on to objectives as fast as possible and punch off, I think is super important. And we're seeing it more, like we're seeing it in the army list and the lists that are doing well generally. But, of course, those Dark Angels have actually brought the shooting as well. And it will be interesting to see whether or not, as much as the movement game and the combat game is going to be a really integral part here, and when we get into the stats and talk about it in a minute, those Dark Angels, I think, have actually, they're in the ascendancy. Ultimately, there's a lot of weathering fire that can potentially come from long range from the Dark Angels, and that might tip the balance of power here. There's 180 points basically in those two in the Plagueburst Scrollers each, so you're talking like 360 points of basically do nothing in those Plagueburst Scrollers.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
So, get into your deployment zone, but that's probably about it, right? So if you end up doing that, you then push your stuff into the center and say, I'm going to hand set your secondary with you. We're going to draw with secondaries. So once you are doing that, you're basically saying you're getting 12 points in your secondary. And then let's say you get 30 points in the other two. So you've got 42 there and I'm getting 40 here, right? And then we're going to draw on primaries, right? Which basically means you're going to end up with 5 points each, 5 points each. For both sides, right? So that means you're probably going to end up with 20 points each. So that means you're going to end up with 62 points, and you're going to end up with 60 points on John's side, right? So normally that would be a losing scenario, except for the changes that you've now seen with the changes to second turn. So, for example, if you now go second, you score your points at the end of that battle round rather than at the start. So that means that Scrivo now has the freedom in his turn 5 to push all of his gubbins onto that central objective, hold for free, and hold more, which would give him an extra 10 points, which means Scrivo would win by 8. So he didn't need to force the issue here, especially if he's behind, but he can still do it. Because he's then losing a further 5 points on that secondary, which means that you'd probably end up winning by 3 if he decides to do that. So I think rather than the biggest issue being the 5 points that's been dropped because of how this has been deployed for the bottom right, the biggest issue is the inability to push into the center, because the unit that's been picked that would normally be pinning down the center now has to run all the way off to the right-hand side just to hold that objective.
I agree. So, Tom, loads of salient points there. End of the movement phase for the Dark Angels. As you can see, Tom giving a good recap of what we think we've seen so far. We've seen this unit of Deathwing moving to the bottom objectives. This Intercessors unit holding here, looking for the counter charge from the Deathwings. We have moved into the shooting phase, though, and this is the phase which Death Guard are not going to dominate. This is going to be all about the Dark Angels. So, nice to see whether or not they're going to do really well. Obviously, this Talon Master is giving the rerolls to this Redemptor Dreadnought It's got that plasma culvern attached, and we could see it do some really solid work. And of course, this Leviathan Dreadnought, the terror of 8th edition, still viable, very viable in loads of Space Marine lists, gunning down that poor Rhino, which I don't think Nick overly minds those guys popping out, because I feel like he might try and pop them into cover. He might even pop them out aggressively. Don't forget, then we've got the intercessor shooting available there as well. So
and you've got 10 of them as well. It's very nice.
Yeah. So, so I don't think he minds these popping out, but we will see who he does decide to target. Sorry, say that again.
No.
Oh, right, okay. So, apologies. Right, yeah. So we're seeing the Leviathan Dreadnought. I'm pretty certain target the Rhino, Table Boss. Let's just hear that. Oh. So he changed too. He did. Tom, how do you feel about this target priority? So one of the things that you're going to hear about a lot in 40k is target priority. Is choosing and making the right decision on which targets you want to focus.
So
he's decided to target his Leviathan Dreadnought, I'm pretty certain, into the Blightlord Terminators. How do you feel about that?
I mean, it should do some pretty significant damage, right? But it's about what Scriver wants to do. If he kills this Rhino on the opposite sides of the Blightlord Terminators, that shuts down the movement from these Plague Marines a little bit, and also means that you can probably consider yourself a little bit safer on this objective in Scriver's bottom right, which he needs to do because it's for his secondary for the Stubborn Defiance, right? So you could make that play, or you could do what I was talking about earlier in terms of controlling the center space by removing some of these Blightlord Terminators, because certainly Scriver doesn't need to be as scared if these Blightlord Terminators are gone. It's just the 2 squads of Plague Marines, which they are scary, but you are evening out the balance across the board, and therefore meaning that you don't really have this brick of power that Nikos can just like wield around like a rusty pipe as he walks across the board. So if he gets a couple of those down, maybe he can do something, and the Leviathan should be killing a few. But it's one of those where it's looking for a long-term benefit in terms of pressuring the board rather than looking to pressure specific areas of control Scrivo needs by killing this runner. So it's 6 of 1.
It feels like in turn 1 he's making a turn 4 play. He feels like he wants to whittle the army down early, especially that major threat of those Blight Lords. And of course, now in the shooting phase, just let you guys know what did happen. Only one of the Blight Lord Terminators actually went down. So
still
far,
value. At least it doesn't come back.
It doesn't come back. Yeah, it doesn't come back.
Absolutely an improvement. Now, I feel like it's one of those decisions that Scrivo's made based on some new information, right? I feel like the correct play would have been to double down on this. You shoot the Blight Lord Terminators with all the gubbins you have over on this side, and you push the rest of the stuff, like the Deathwing Knights here, into the center, and you make this squad of intercessors your squad for the purposes of Stubborn Defiance, right? That way you get that extra turn of Stubborn Defiance out there as well. You may well open yourself up to these Plague Marines, but if you do, then, I mean, Nikos runs out, kills some intercessors, won't kill the whole squad, and then all the Plague Marines get clubbed to death by the entire Dark Angel's army, right? As it's happened now, because we've got no pressure in the center, Nikos can absolutely go and try and kill these Deathwing Knights down here and deny Scrivo 5 points for his while we stand while we fight and push him off the objective with no real hope of Scrivo ever getting that one back. What's he got to move in there? The Redemptor Dreadnought? Yeah, it's just going to come and kick him in the head repeatedly, isn't he? I mean, he would. He's actually pretty scary, but at the same time, it's like one thing. It's not a massive deal. It does look like Scrivo's splitting a little bit of fire here, though, and that's probably because these intercessors can't get in range of these Blight Lord Terminators.
Yeah, so into the shooting phase now. We still, I'm pretty certain, have the Redemptor Dreadnought to fire, but we'll double check that with the table boss in a moment. The Blight Lord Terminators took one, and then another one is down to 1 wound. We're just doing some small arms fire, and as you said, Tom, we're seeing this unit of intercessors fire into the Rhino, looking to ping some wounds. Did 3 wounds though.
I mean, that's not too bad. You are getting rerolls from Azrael, so you are getting quite a
hits and wounds,
chunk of damage. Yeah, hits and wounds. But still, it's like you haven't really reduced its movement there at all. I mean, keep going for another 2 turns, and you might have them. But I don't think it's going to last too long. I do want to see Nikos push these Blade Burst crawlers up a bit, though.
Because let's I want to hear that too, Tom.
No,
I'd like
it's
to hear
fine.
that thought, but I'd like to just quickly talk about rhinos. John, who's playing him, obviously knows that Nick loves his rhinos, and I've got to tell you, I do as well. Having played Nick a lot, there's a lot of respect for the rhinos because of not. You look at it and you think, right, it's protecting all the lads inside. Oh no, no, no! In a moment, that's going to become an annoying, charging, making you fall out of combat unit. It's not gonna hold up units forever. It's like obviously not gonna hold up the Terminators, but give it a chance to charge into the Leviathan Dreadnought or even the Intercessors. Is gonna hold up shooting for another turn. It's a great. If I told you, hey, for 80 points you can make a unit or maybe 2 units have to fall back and not be able to shoot for a turn, you'd be like, this is a good investment actually in a list. That's some good tech. And then in addition, it makes you save your units from bolter fire. I think a great choice in most lists.
100%. It's something annoying you have to deal with. I remember doing our first show, which was on annihilation barges in November 2017. And Nikos was talking about how you can use an annihilation barge to charge someone and stop them shooting. This is just what this man does. He loves tagging you with his stupid little barges that stop you from shooting for the rest of the turn. It's absolutely fantastic and I love it. But also one of the things you can do is while you're pushing that forward, I really like to see people use these like traditionally backline tanks more aggressively because you've got no real reason to sit here. I mean, you can sit here and say, yeah, well, I'm getting the bonus because I can ignore line of sight and shoot you. So if I stay here, there's no way I'm ever going to die. Like, bitch, if you keep pushing forwards, you're not going to die either. Like, what's he going to shoot you with? He's got a Leviathan Dreadnought that can't see you on the other side of the board. And even if he does shoot you with the Leviathan Dreadnought and the Redemptor, what's he not shooting at? He's not shooting at the flaming Blight Lords that are walking up the board. Although I said the Blight Lords are currently dying a little bit.
Yeah, we've just lost another Blight Lord to the shooting phase here. Thanks to Innes Wilson for subscribing, and thanks for everyone for watching live. Big love to you all. It's lovely here. I'm excited to see. I'm pretty certain this is actually Innes Wilson's list. Actually, that's what I heard.
Yeah.
I don't want to.
This is Innes' Dark Angels list, which is why it's terrible. Yep.
Yes, that's what I heard. The Redemptor still to fire, Table Boss, or we're hearing.
He's not sure whether he wants to fire it at all.
We're in the decision phase, Tom. Yeah, he's not sure whether he even wants to fire it when.
Feels me.
The Dreadwoods, thanks for just subscribing as well. So yeah, this unit of Blight Lord Terminators, which is one of the bricks, and don't forget, let's just remind everyone, this is obviously one of the Death Guards while we stand, while we fight. So super important that they stay alive. Already dropped down to 8. They've obviously got this fight with these this unit of Deathwing Knights. However, Tom, I'm fancying their ability to roll this right-hand flank. Death Guard super strong on the right. Obviously not anywhere near as strong on the left-hand flank, of course. But I feel like that they can push this bottom flank here into this unit of 5 and even push the center. They can bring this Rhino over. They could just bunny hop, throw that Rhino over to the center, bring forward. There's a unit of 5 Plague Marines here. And, of course, the Plagueburst Crawler. They can hold this objective. That unit of Deathwing Knights is not going to get over there this turn. So, really, I feel like it's a dummy play. I feel like he's gone super strong, bottom row, as you guys can see here, and then he's going to play the center, and that's how he's going to hold the board. And instead of, he's not just going to run the Dark Angel Castle, right? There's no point.
Yeah.
No one's doing that.
I feel like next turn is absolutely going to have to be the go turn for Nikos before he loses too many of these Blight Lords. So you're going to need this squad of Blight Lords going into these Deathwing Knights on the bottom left corner for Scrivo. And then I feel what you do is you disembark the squad of 10 Plague Marines in Rhino C behind this short end of wall, and then you move the Rhino itself up onto the central objective. That way, you either have to shoot the Rhino, or you have to push onto the Rhino and charge it, and then get whacked by 20 Plague Marines that are going to jump out of both of these Rhinos here. I don't think in the top right that Rhino goes anywhere in particular, although I do think you still push up the Plagueburst Crawler just so it has room to sit on that objective later on. Same with the other objective. So I feel like Nikos has to at least go for it next turn because he needs to establish his broad presence. If he continues to sit off, Scrivo may get more comfortable and then try and push into the center himself and really restrict that line that Nikos can get with regards to getting his secondaries and make it very hard for him to score those points.
Well, so Nick, very aware that those Blight Lord Terminators are an integral part, obviously, of his list and trying to keep them alive, just spent a CP 2 reroll an invulnerable save on those Blight Lords. Oh, so we lost one, and then we've just lost another one now as well.
Word.
So,
yeah, he has to go next turn, man. He has to go.
yeah, he's got to push in hard. So as much as this -1 damage coming in, we still only got 7 of these Blight Lords left. We lost 3 out of 10. 3 out of 10.
Yeah.
But that is gonna switch up the balance of power very, very quickly at this bottom left-hand corner. So he has to get mobile, and he has to get in this charge range. And that isn't an easy charge either. That is not like they're close together. They could.
And even if you just make it, mate, it's tricky because you have to feed your way around the bottom of that crater, and then Scrivo can pop his 1 CP and mean that you can only fight.
Why do I have to feed myself around the crater, Tom?
So if you were to go through the crater, you'd be taking a -2 to your charge range, which is probably more than you'd take by just moving around the crater.
Yeah.
So if I were Nikos, you would have to daisy chain around the side, which means that you spread out a little bit more. Then you charge in, and then suddenly Scrivo drops his 1 CP on the stratagem, which is called.
Don't do that.
Sorry, I can't find it. It's
Please never
like
do
the
that
only
again.
place I could find it is on the Warhammer community page because Line Unbreakable. There we go.
Yes.
Which
So,
basically prevents you to want to explain it.
However, Arepa makes the good point and is obviously true. Tom was just setting it up for you guys to know. Of course, Death Guard, because of Implacable Advance, they're just going to ignore that -2. They're going to ignore that terrain effect, which is actually pretty important because in the counter, that is not Dark Angels aren't going to get to do that. So these craters, as you can see on the board, they are going to cause issues for being able to move through for the Dark Angels, but not issues for the Death Guard. And I actually think that that's a quite cool feature of the boardscape in of itself, right? It changes up the shape of the game quite nicely and also gives Death Guard like that small advantage. Do I think it's going to be enough? Oh, that's a great question. I'm not 100% certain.
Rob, are you telling me that the advantage that the Death Guard has over the Dark Angels chapter is speed?
I am, sir. I am, sir. I am telling you that.
That's a little bit weird, but that's okay then. We don't mind.
In this setup, this is the situation. That's the end of the Dark Angels' first turn. So we're going to be moving into the Death Guard's turn. I'm just going to take a moment to update all of the points that you guys need to see on the board. But primary points at the start of the command phase, the Death Guard are going to score these 2 objectives. So they're going to get 5 for each of these. They don't hold more, so they're just going to get 10 for that primary.
Yeah,
which is
we still
not
also need to find out, mate, if they are going to score any raise banners points as well, because we may have had the top left with the Blight Lord Terminators actioned into doing raise banners, although I believe they advanced, which means that they can't do the action. I think that's correct.
They can't. No.
No,
you can
that's
just
very
move
disappointing.
and do an action. So yeah, he's in a tough spot there.
Yeah.
But 10 points on the board straight off, which I think is good. Is this one hold 2, hold 3, hold more? Yes, absolutely a Reaper. This is hold 2. No, you're right. So he's only scored 5. Good point.
Yes,
he's only scored
exactly.
5. Thank
Sorry,
you.
I thought you meant scored 5 for holding both the objectives and not giving him more points. That's okay, though. That's okay. That just means more advantage for the second turn player, though, mate. Because if you're going second in a game where it's hold 2, hold 3, if you hold 3 on a map where there's 5 objectives, you're going to hold more, and you're going to get the points for holding the third objective as well. So it's effectively a 10-point swing.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge. This center objective is going to become very, very important very quickly. Also, there's a big points difference down this bottom corner. Again, I don't want to build up the fight too much, but I'm going to. This unit of Blight Lord Terminators, if they do get into these Deathwing Knights, the ability for the Dark Angels to score heavily on primary is massively reduced because they're going to need to hold 2 just to get 5 and 3 to get 10. And they need to hold more to get 15. And I can see them not achieving that at all. And in fact, as you can see, Nick is moving out his unit of Plague Marines and he's going aggro into those intercessors. And I think the reason that he's planning on doing that is because he's just looking to outscore them on primary very heavily, very quickly. So he's obviously going to get recharged into this unit of Plague Marines from 2 horrific Terminator units and all the characters.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much I like this, but I respect his balls. Because what you could do is
Well,
you
I
only
say
need
every
to knock
Saturday.
your opponent. I know, right? Yeah. You only need to knock your opponent off one objective at a time. You don't need to knock them off both. So, for example, this turn, Nikos could charge with all of these Blight Lord Terminators and contest this bottom left objective held by the Deathwing Knights. He'll probably then lose him the next turn, but it's okay. Scrivo has just lost 5 points again, right? Because he hasn't held 2 objectives. And then the next turn, you go with these Plague Marines, and you contest this objective. And once again, Scrivo is not holding 2 objectives. So he drops another 5 points. And suddenly these are piling up. And then you can do it again with the other squad of Plague Marines on the other side, mate. You can keep doing it. You can ruin 3 of his 4 turns of scoring by just individually lobbing units onto Scrivo's objectives.
Yes, I think, and it might be a play that we see him do. I think it's aggressive, but I feel like having obviously done the shows on the Death Guard, I feel like the Death Guard have to play this kind of aggressive playstyle. I think that's why there's look at the Rhino, the Rhino do its job.
Off. This
Now
is
there
totally
is a bit
unnecessary, but I love it.
Now I have a bit of I do have a bit of an issue with this Rhino play.
I hate it all.
You hate it too.
I hate it all. I hate this entire right-hand side.
I hate the Rhino play massively. Can you talk to me why you hate it, or can I chip
hate
in?
it because we were talking a little bit there about how he only needs to log 1 unit off an objective per turn. Nikos could have done this in turn 3. He could have done this in turn 3. But you can't take these Blight Lord Terminators and lob these onto here on turn 3 because you're not going to have enough to contest. Let's say you lose another 3 Blight Lord Terminators in your next turn. Congratulations, you now have 4 Blight Lords. Well, it just so happens the Deathwing Knights have 5 guys, so it doesn't matter if you're OBSEC, you still got more dudes.
Yeah.
So it's not going to difference. So you might as well do this one on the left in turn 2 and this one on the right in turn 3. Instead, we've got this one going on turn 2. So I hope Nikos just goes full on aggro balls to the wall and charges absolutely everything.
I think he's going to. I think it's just a wave, right? He's just going to replace all of his backfield objectives. These Blight Lords are going through.
Just go in for it.
And just go absolutely all the way in. The major issue though, Tom, that I have is the placement of that Rhino. Right now, there's no way those Deathwing Knights, I don't think, although I'd have to measure it, can get onto this centre objective. However, now a movement and a ballsy charge, a big old charge, and they get on. So he's giving him movement. And I feel that that's always an issue. I played Dwarves for a long time in my life. They don't want, and they shouldn't let you ever pop a big charge. Like you should never give me a 12-inch charge because I'll take it all the time. So the fact that he's just left it there is in my opinion, a bit of a big deal and a mistake.
Yeah, as we can see, Nikos is now going with Blight Lord Terminators, but you're 100% right with the Deathwing Knights. It also gives Scrivo that ability to regain a lot of that lost movement from the previous turn where he had to move across to the objective. Now, it does mean that Scrivo has a choice. Does he go over to this objective on the bottom right and try and take his stubbornly defiant or whatever secondary points? Or does he now just run into the center and just kick Nikos in the face with this? Because also what's happened now, because you've got these Plague Marines out of this Rhino over here, you have ended up with losing a lot of the potential threat you had on the central objective, especially with these Blight Lord Terminators going to the bottom left as well. The only things that could potentially charge you on this central objective that you would really care about are maybe the characters like the Lord of Virulence, which is back here, or the Plague Marines from Rhino C. I also want to talk about another problem, which is that this Rhino has reversed all of the feckin' way across the board into the center of that objective. So he's got a long way with his reverse lights on.
He's got a very long way to go, and I'm not sure if he's actually going to make it, if I'm honest with you.
Do you have a rear view mirror on your Rhino, mate? Because I don't see where it is. Is it this little hole in the back of the Rhino at the top? I'm trying to find the rear view mirror, mate. How does he see where he's going?
I have no idea how he sees where he's going, but he's not making it at all, is he? Ultimately,
he's just making it up as he goes along.
He really, really is. But we'll see if it pays off. It's a long charge into those Deathwing Knights, right? Look at that! The Poxwalkers replacing the Poxwalkers replacing the unit of Blight Lords there. That unit of Plague Marines, the Plague Marines in the Rhino still waiting it out. I feel like we're going to see both of the Plague Burst Crawlers move out aggressively. However, do you know what this charge is for this this unit of Terminators?
I don't know, mate. I'm just watching him drop all these Poxwalkers on the roof.
The gravity's a bit broken on these. They also are hilarious looking models. Look, look at this guy. He's a runner.
These guys can't do actions, by the way.
Do
In
you know
fact, can
what?
we do the Death Guard specific ones?
No, they can't do actions.
I thought they could poo on the objectives.
Sorry,
Damn it,
buddy.
never mind.
Sorry.
Oh dear, I will. So sorry, Rob. What's the range on this charge?
Oh, so the Black Lord Terminators are going to get an 8-inch charge there. This is the Lord of Virulence is also with them as well. He's not going to give them any bonuses. So an 8-inch charge to get into those Deathwing Knights, pretty game changing ultimately. I think getting across the board there, I think that's going to be pretty key. As you can see, this unit of Plague Marines with all of the weapons are going to be going into these Intercessors, and if they do get that charge, it's going to be a big deal. He's going to be able to slap them down quite nicely. Tom, maybe while we see the rest of this movement, the other Rhino moving in the middle as well. Hate that.
Oh,
Hate that massively.
He did something that made me pump my fist in the air, and then he's just done something that makes me physically sick. So I just watched him push the Plague Burst Crawler up, and I was pumping my fist in the air. I love it. I love how aggressive he's getting with these Plague Burst Crawlers. What I don't love is how aggressive he's getting with these Rhinos, especially one with guys all inside of it. I'm not a big fan. But there we are. I mean, he's already got the free movement to that side anyway, right? So it's like, whatever.
He's definitely gone for it. He's not holding back in any way, shape, or form.
He's just intimidating Scrivo. That's what he's doing. He's making himself look big.
I have to respect. He's decided to go for it. I mean, what else can we ask for?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
But, I mean, it's going to be a good old fight when we actually get into it. But I'm not certain if we're actually even going to get into it, to be honest, Tom. It's right. There's lots riding on it, but I'm not sure it's going to happen.
Mate, you know how the like public advice in Canada or whatever it is, there goes a Plague Burst Crawler, is that if you encounter a bear, you need to make yourself look big or something, right? So I'm looking at the Dark Angels army, mate. And that is one big scary bear, okay? I'm very scared it's going to rip me limb from limb and tear me to shreds. This Death Guard army is just a bunch of rando cultist people who probably could not fight the bear. But if they make themselves look big and scary, the bear might be scared and just kind of not attack them, you know? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I feel like that's not what Nikos' strategy is here, okay? That's his macro. His macro is to make himself look big and scary so the Dark Angel's bear doesn't charge him. I am worried the Dark Angel's bear might charge him, but we'll have to see what Scrivo does in his turn too.
We'll have to see if the Dark Angel's bear even cares. I think that's what it is. But you're right. This is big Death Guard. This is big Death Guard energy. BDE all over the place. I mean, I think what he's given him is a couple of options, right? Although, as you guys can see, he's going to be able to just take these Terminators right here and push them into the center. And then he's going to be able to take the other unit of Terminators and then push them over to where those Plague Marines are at the same time.
Yeah.
Which I think is kind of interesting, but he is making him split the force.
Yeah. And he would lose Stubborn Defiance as well, but he would also win the game, so it's probably worth it in the end.
Yeah. So a lot of people talking about that big Death Guard energy. They're loving it. They're excited to see it. Tom, I'm nervous now.
Big Dark Angels energy as well, so I mean, it's all BDE over here.
It's all BDE all the time. Right, okay. So we're still measuring these charges. Oh, look who's dropped down from the sky, though, Tom. He was in
I
Deep
have no idea who that is.
It's the Lord of Contagion, so he's the Warlord, and most importantly, he's got Arch Contaminator. So re-roll to wound available coming from the Arch Contaminator. Don't forget, we've also got the Breakout Stratagem as well. So his contagion that he's got, because he is in Mortarian's
Anvil.
Mortarian's Anvil, thank you.
Yes.
Because of Mortarian's Anvil means that his aura range, or his aura ability, or his special ability is going to be no rerolls to hit and no rerolls to wound. Now, we've just had 2 CP spent from the Dark Angels on a cheeky Auspex scan, Tom.
Can he do that? Because I think the only unit he could Auspex scan with is a squad of Intercessors. And the Lord of Contagion, although not within 3 inches of the Plague Marines, is within 3 inches of that Rhino by the looks of it. And then these Plague Marines are closer to the Intercessors. He wouldn't be able to. I don't know what the ruling is on this. What do you think? I what's got ruled against Warhammer World. I mean, he could still fire with most of the squad, just not all of the squad. I feel like there are some guys that can't shoot. So we'll have to have a look. I didn't mean to bring up a rules dispute, but it was worth
It's
checking.
okay. Classic WTC player there. There you go. It's been worked out, so he's doing it. He's auspex
Right,
scanning
fine.
the balls off this Lord of Contagion. Now, this Lord of Contagion, I don't think is going to even... He's going to laugh. 2 up armor save, 4 up armor, 4 up invulnerable save. He obviously
He's in
reduces
cover,
damage by 1. He's toughness 5. He's not toughness 6.
He's toughness 5. Yeah.
Yeah, he's toughness
You
5.
got him.
So
yeah, it
he's
should be
baller.
okay. And also, I feel like even if he does lose a couple of wounds, who really cares? Like,
Of course.
it's not going to matter too much. Like, I mean, if he's getting killed in combat, it's probably getting killed in combat. But kill him from 4 wounds, so I don't think it's a massive deal. So there you go. He's taken a single wound. Oopsie, that's very scary.
Only 1 wound. Bless his heart.
John is really desperate to fight his way through VCP, though, I guess. So he is down to 6. He'll be back up to a 7 in the next turn. But it's just a case of he's only got 2 pages of stratagems, bless him, plus an entire extra book. So he's really desperate to mow through the CP as much as he can.
Really wants it. Really, he's got all of the CP to spend and all the abilities to use them on, but. This game isn't going to be over quickly, I don't think. It's going to be all about this engaging fight at the flank and whether or not some of these key charges can roll off. Now, I think he's going to want to get that unit, that Lord of Contagion in as well if he can, for the contamination buff, for rerolls to wound. That's going to be important. So he's relying on some big charges. We've got an 8-inch charge over here into this unit of Deathwings, a 9-inch there, and I would say we've got a 6 or 7-inch charge from this unit of Plague Marines. Now, those Plague Marines are kitted out. Let's talk about a couple of the stratagems that we can use. +1 attack on the whole unit. That's going to be really important.
With
and then also,
knives,
don't forget the carry over stratagem, my favourite stratagem, the ability to make any wounds caused carry over.
I mean, we've still got, before we even get into that close combat phase, we have got a couple of shooting units. So we've got both of these Plague Burst Crawlers right now. They look like they're going to shoot into this Dark Angel's brick, see if it can soften it up a little bit, which I think is a good call. It's a good target priority. You don't obviously want to shoot this unit of Deathwing Knights on Scrivo's bottom left, because if you do, you risk making your charge longer for your Blight Lord Terminators, even if it would be useful to remove a couple of obsec bodies from that side of the board. It may even be worth, I'd be tempted to fire a couple of shots into the Redemptive Dreadnought over here, but, it's a pretty durable piece in and of itself. It has -1 damage inbuilt too, so I don't know how much you're going to get there. It may just be worth trying to chip through this section in the center.
Yeah, so we're into the shooting phase now for the Death Guard. We are seeing these Plague Burst Crawlers start to unload. We've seen the Rothtail Volley Gun targeting into the Deathwing Knights. I don't imagine he's going to charge anything shoot anything into the Intercessors. He's going to want to make sure he doesn't make that charge even harder for himself between these 2 points. However, he's still. I mean, the Intercessors are the softest. We talked about this before. The softest target available to him, and he's doing nothing to the rest of the army. It's pretty daunting, really, Tom. Facing off against this. Like, what do you think about this army list in general? We know that it's slow, but the fact that it's so tough. Have you got any thoughts on that?
I know. It's insane. I mean, we were also talking about this earlier with regards to the Lord of Contagion, right? Let's say you do 1 wound to it. Okay, well, nobody really cares. Well, if Nikos kills a couple of Intercessors, does anybody really care? What does this achieve, right? So it doesn't really do too much for you at all killing a couple of Intercessors, because you just bring them back with the Apothecary anyway. So it's not a massive deal. And even then, what are they doing? They're not achieving any secondaries specifically for you. They're not the unit selected for Stubborn Defiance. Why do you need these guys dead? I mean, they're just a meat shield, man. I don't know. I feel like you take the high risk play and you shoot something else and try and remove it. But no, I get that they're probably more models to kill, and killing models is indeed very fun. But I'm just trying to work out what it would achieve. Although, on the subject of killing useful models, it looks like the Talon Master has taken some damage.
Keep going.
Oh, I just said Metallic Master taking some damage. I believe he's taken 4 wounds from a second Plague Burst Crawler. I need to find Metallic Master. I can't see it. Oh, it's
so
all
that's
from
all
the
from the first Plague Burst Crawler, yeah.
All right, fair enough. So it looks like it fired a couple of side weapons into the Intercessor and everything else that doesn't require line of sight into the Talon Master, which I would need to find. I haven't found the Talon Master on the board yet. Maybe.
Oh, so he's right. He's right. The Talon Master's right at the bottom, with the Deathwing Knights in front of the Redemptive Dreadnought, right here. is where he is, where the white hand is, in front of the Blight Lords, near the statue. That's what we're seeing. We're just seeing some raised banners happen.
I'll look at my stream.
Oh,
he's not on my screen. He's on yours. I can see it on the stream.
That's weird.
I could just see a marble. All right.
Well,
okay,
the wonder of TTS. As we go forward, so yeah, so the Talonmaster there is taking 4 damage from this Plague Burst Crawler. Only one Plague Burst Crawler fired so far into the Talonmaster. Is that right?
Yeah, I believe it was only the first one. Yeah.
Okay, so he also shot at the Deathwing Knights and didn't do any damage. I'd have been tempted to double up on the Talonmaster if he got the opportunity. But why? So he's able to shoot the Talonmaster because he can't claim. Yeah. Okay. All right.
All right. So it doesn't look like we've got too much else to shoot. Maybe you've got a couple of Stormbolters on a couple of bits and bobs, like the Rhinos, but you also have the Plague Spewers and the Combi Bolters on the Blightlord Terminators. Now, I believe Talonmasters only have 8 wounds, which would mean that Talonmaster is down to 4. So that is something that could drop relatively soon if you get that damage through. And I believe it only has a 4+ save as well. I don't think it's the most durable thing. It's basically just a land speeder. So Nikos is using overwhelming generosity from the Lord of Virulence to make the shooting of the Blightlord Terminators more effective. So he's got +6-inch range on a lot of the guns here. So that would apply to the Plague Spewers, and that would apply to any of the plague weapons in there effectively. So it depends upon whether or not he's going to give the bolt weapons a plague weapon. But I don't think he needs to, because I think he's already in range, and because he's on a Terminator, he's already getting the rapid fire onto the Talonmaster. So we've got 9 shots from the Lord of Virulence himself firing at the Talonmaster, because you've got the extra range from the Lord of Virulence. Seeing if
he's rolled a 9. So he's
word.
so yeah.
That's
he's hit with 8. And then he's it's decent, and it's a plague weapon. Don't forget, so it's gonna be reroll ones to wound. Losing the Talonmaster, not a I mean, it's a good swing. It's a good swing, but not a huge swing necessarily. But getting him out of the way is useful. He's a fast unit. He's got a 5-up invulnerable save. But we could see him taken off the board early. So we're seeing a 1 CP has been spent now. So it's a CP game. Tom, we're into the serious nuts and bolts of 40k.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I don't know what that stratagem does, but I'll have to find out. I just hear names and I'm like, I have no idea what this means.
So that increases his invulnerable save by 1, so he's on a 4-up invulnerable save, and which means only 2 of those wounds have gone through. Right
still
now,
got the Blight Lords, mate. I believe
still
the Blight Lords.
Got the Blight Lords. Still got the Blight Lords.
Lots of shots here, mate. You can't stop them. They've all got combi bolters, and they've got the Beta Vita bolter rule, also known as malicious volleys in the Death Guard Codex, and they are going to be shooting at this Talonmaster. Now, I believe the Talonmaster is a character, and the character may be within 3 inches of this Redempted Dreadnought. And if it is, that would mean that they can only shoot at it if it's the closest target, which unfortunately, these fellas, the Deathwing Knights, are stood right there. So the ones that are close to the Talonmaster, I believe, will be shooting the Talonmaster. The ones that aren't will have to shoot the Deathwing Knights. So maybe with a couple that I can't imagine it's more than 2 or 3, maybe 1 or 2 even getting onto that Talonmaster. See if they can remove that bad boy. Get yourself some guns off the board and stop taking so much shooting damage.
Yeah, so he's taken 6 wounds already. I'm pretty certain. I think he has 2 left. I'll double check that though in a minute. We'll double check with our table boss how many wounds he's got remaining. But taken 6 definitely. And of course, like you say, a couple of wounds even into the Deathwing Knights. He does have 2 left.
I just got a roll right, and I'm very proud of myself.
Yeah, go on. We're smashing it. We're smashing it. I hope you guys in the Twitch chat enjoyed yourselves.
So yeah, that's 2 wounds left on that Talonmaster. You've got a couple of wounds coming through from some bolters as well.
And don't forget, he's pushed him to a 4-up invulnerable save now. So
a burn precious CP resource he needs.
So he has survived. Shooting all done, the Talonmaster has survived. 1 wound remaining. He's going to get out of dodge next turn. He is looking to move right across the board. Don't forget, he's super fast. Movement 16. I don't think he can. Yeah, so he cannot be healed.
I was joking. It's okay.
I would like it if he could be though.
That's
I mean, I don't know if these two rhinos have taken a couple of pot shots yet with their bolters on top. I wouldn't mind seeing that occur. That would be a fun little change. And is there still a Plague Burst Crawler left? I don't think so. This Plague Burst Crawler here attacked into this unit of Deathwing Knights at the bottom.
Nikos fires him first. He loves him.
So here is the big... Here's the big Death Guard. Okay.
Oh, the second Plague Burst Crawler still hasn't shot.
It hasn't shot. The second Plague Burst Crawler has not shot.
It has just committing all of this.
Oh, it's the Talon Master is in it to win it.
Poor Talon Master is going to get whacked.
He's got the Rothtail volley gun coming at him. He's got the big thud gun. He's got 3 shots. He's wounded 3 times. Oh, he's got his 4-up invulnerable save. He's failed.
My good
he's
Lord,
failed them all. He has failed them all. Talon Master
that requires an explosion at this point.
He is.
I feel like, Rob, what do you think about this, mate? Would you like to see a rule whereby for every extra wound that that killed you, for example, let's say you had 1 wound left and you killed by you took 3 wounds at the end, right?
Yeah.
For every wound that overflowed, you added a +1 to your explosion roll.
That would be cool. So to a maximum, obviously, of a 2-up.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to see, if I blow up that vehicle, I want to blow up that vehicle.
Yeah,
okay?
I want to blow it up.
I really want to kill it, okay?
Here we go.
I feel like that'd be fun.
So listen, Tom, some big plays here. Importantly, these charges. We're in the charge phase. We're looking for some 8 inches, some 9 inches. Let us know who's charging. That's the big question.
I'm always looking for some 8 inches and 9 inches on my Thursday evenings, mate, to be perfectly honest.
Always want those charges. That's what we're looking for.
To re-roll it to give it another go, okay? Let's see where he goes first, because these are very important charges.
So who's charging first? The Blight Lords? They need an 8.
I feel like the Blight Lords should charge first because they may need that command point reroll, okay? And then if I don't need it, you can save it for the other squad.
It's the most important charge. So we'll just find out from our table boss who is charging right now.
That is a big roll, though. That's an
11
charge from one of the units. I'm not sure which one yet. Looks like he might be going with the.
That's the Lord of Contagion of all guys with Arch Contaminator.
He's going to tank the Overwatch because he's already demonstrated he doesn't care about your stratagems to fire
an 11-inch charge. Look at that. That's massive. So,
that
Overwatch.
That would have been a terrible idea to Overwatch. Probably, definitely don't do that.
Overwatch
I'm not sure how
used.
I feel about where this Lord of Contagion got placed, though, because now he's just going to get clubbed to death next turn.
But that's the right decision, though, right, Tom? Because what he's doing is he's going to tank the Terminators. Don't forget, the Terminators in the middle, they have to split. One of the units has to go up into the Lord of Contagion and also the Plague Marines, and the other unit has to go into the center. So that means he might be able to tank one of those units he can tank one of those units on the Lord of Contagion, allowing the Plague Marines, if they get a cheeky charge here, what I would do is just clip right at the back and make it so that I'm not even necessarily engaged. Maybe you don't then kill the intercessors.
I feel like you do have to fight with the Plague Marines first, though, okay? Because if you don't, then there's a good chance the Lord of Contagion just kills a bunch of dudes close to the Plague Marines. So the Plague Marines also really want it. They've followed their boss.
Big Death Guard energy! Big Death Guard energy
coming in. Also, no command point reroll used yet, so we can still save the Blight Lord Terminators. That's
another
very,
11-inch charge. Indeed. Twitch chat, just in case, just to keep you updated.
Please put another. Please.
Another 11-inch charge. Don't worry, he's going to put them all on the objective. He's just maximizing his combat. Is what we're seeing here. We're seeing loads. Don't forget, we've got that strategy, Tom.
He's not touching. Okay, he can get around to the other side. That's fine.
Yeah,
okay.
That's what he's looking to do. He's just looking
get your secondary objective off here. We don't want to see any of that shite.
Yeah,
you're not having
straight
that.
Off.
This is my now point.
Oh, is he spreading them out? Oh, he's going to bubble wrap his Lord of Contagion.
I thought you wanted the Lord of Contagion to block from a charge.
No, that's not going to work though, because he's going to move the intercessors. I thought he was going to use that.
I mean, he probably would have had to if he had not rolled a second 11-inch bloody charge.
What a! I can't wait to see another 11-inch charge.
I love it.
Yeah, he's all the way in.
He doesn't care anymore. Might as well charge these rhinos in the center end at this point. You know, you've come so far with them. You might as well
There's some interesting things though with not seeing in the Death Guard list. We haven't seen any psychers, so we're not seeing miasma, which is -1 to hit. We're also obviously not seeing +1 strength, +1 toughness in this army as well. So we're missing some sort of key components from making a unit even more survivable. Ultimately, I reckon this unit of intercessors is going to absolutely get smoked, which I think is going to be really interesting. And then, I mean, you're right. The Death Guard, like he knows the Death Guard are coming for it. Not Death Guard, the Dark Angels. He's not charging the Blight Lords, Tom. Mind blown.
I maybe he's hoping that the Leviathan has to commit and remove the Plague Marines over here. But there's a good chance he doesn't.
Maybe it's just because of activations, right? Like he activates over here, then the...
Yeah, but they're intercessors though, bruv. Like, what's he worried about?
So he's got the Plague Surgeon, he's got the Lord of Virulence. If he had the Strike Last Biologist Putrefier, I think that's the guy. Then you
don't care though, mate. You don't care about these intercessors ever spending 2 CP to intercept, right? You charge Blight Lords, fight with Blight Lords. Then if he wants to intercept with these 10 intercessors, we also hit into one with Asriel. We've got what, 20 attacks, 30 attacks? Because first round of combat. I can maybe see it, and I'm not massively familiar with how durable Plague Marines are, because it's one thing reading it in a book and it's another thing actually experiencing it, right?
Of course. It really is interesting to see we're all set. Twitch chat and you and me set on the idea that we're going to be charging in. We're going to be charging in to these Deathwing Knights, but Nick's not decided it. So he's got a different game plan to what the Twitch chat has decided, and also to what we've decided, right? So he's got something very different here. We've seen another stratagem used for +1 to wound from the Death Guard into...
Yeah, that's Eternal Hatred. So I'm looking for him to pile in here. He may even be able to clip this Leviathan Dreadnought if he really wanted to.
Yes.
If you pile in round this right-hand side, so for example, one of these flails, 3 inches forwards, taps one of these.
Oh, I see. Look at
kill. Pile in.
Yeah, so he could pile in with the Lord of Contagion, right?
Yeah, he could. Oh, yeah, absolutely could. So there's definitely ways you could tag this Leviathan, because this Leviathan's just covered in guns. This Leviathan is not covered in choppy, clawy, stabby close combat weapons.
He isn't, and taking that out is going to protect the Blight Lord Terminators. So the intercessors have become transhuman again.
How many of John's CP have been used on these intercessors?
A lot. We actually would need a CP recap from our table boss real quick so I can change the overlay. Okay, all right. So we're Dark Angels are down
5
to...
and John is to 3.
Yeah, Dark Angels are down to 3 CP now. So not many left, and of course, the Death Guard still up there. 5 CP, still not bad. I don't know if I don't think we're getting +1 attack on the Marines. I think that's not being done right now. That would have been another CP, and then do you know what? The overflow is another 2 CP. So being able to roll over your damage. So that's a big 5 CP dump if he wanted to do it, which he clearly hasn't.
I feel like
decided
it's worth
right
it
now.
though. Because you clear all this stuff, you can then get the 3-inch pile-in and consolidation from a lot of contagion, simply because you charged. So you don't need to be within an inch of something if you charge to get the move.
It's true.
So I feel like I maybe would have done that, but Nikos has different ideas, and we'll see how those work.
Oh, and to be fair, 3 years of doing this with Nick, you and me know not to doubt him sometimes nowadays.
Yeah. He's an absolute crackhead, but he makes it work.
He does. He sees plays like I think you and me play very similarly, and I think that's good. I think that's. Oh, actually, no. You're quite aggro, and I'm quite defensive. If you talk about our play styles, Nick has this whole other play style that me and Tom don't have.
He's just mental. He's just mental.
He does.
It's like, in Black Adam, they go to see the wise woman.
Yes.
And I imagine the wise woman worked. Yeah. That would be Nico.
That's exactly what it is. It's like going to an old witch in the woods. Only all the advice they give you is brilliant, but only they can enact it.
It's like fucking Cassandra from Greek myth. No one believes you, but it's correct.
It's definitely true. So activating first, and let me just hear from the table boss. Which unit is the Marines activating first? That's the question.
Yeah.
Plain Marines going first. Let's talk about. using a unit champion in the cleavers so far. Those cleavers are my favourite weapons in the build. I'll double check to see if he's used the +1 attack because of the Plague Knife strat. Just find out from our table boss. But those cleavers, amazing, Tom. If he hasn't used it, okay. Because I'm all about that. That's what I want to run, Tom. 2 cleavers in a big brick. Spend that stratagem so you overrun damage. Now, unfortunately, those cleavers would be wounded on 2s, but with transhuman just wounded on 4s. But every one you get through is D6 damage, and I think I just saw him get 2 through. And so you could be doing 2d6 damage into a unit of intercessors in overspill, which would just rip through them, take loads of them out. And he didn't, but we've heard he's not popped the overspill strat, so he's just wailing on them in this phase. Which interesting that he's not decided to absolutely guarantee the clear. Have you got any thoughts on that, Tom?
I mean, it comes down to the same process as the +1 attack that he didn't use, right? I would have done it personally, but he's clearly got a different idea, and as we said, we don't down. So, we'll have to see how this works. Maybe he only wanted to remove a certain amount just to make sure he holds that objective, but also make sure he stays in combat so that we have to fall out of here. Now, if he had a Biologus Putrefier, what he could do was prevent bees from falling out at all and just laugh in his face and make him charge his Deathwing Knights over. But also what you can see what's happened here, because of the way these Plague Marines have moved, although I would really like this Plague Marine here, but one with a Mason Axe, to be a little bit further back. And the reason why is because then there'd be no way for these Deathwing Knights to ever get onto this objective without just killing the crap out of all these Plague Marines. And even then, they can't really get on until, they can't even get on until the charge phase next turn, right? So these Deathwing Knights are going to be stuck, unable to get onto this objective at all until the first command phase they'll be on it is the command phase of Scrivo's turn 4. Which means he would get 2 points in turn 5, and that's it from his faction-specific secondary in the form of the Stubborn Defiance.
So actually, I think I know what I'm seeing here. I think I see the play now, Tom, and you've opened my eyes to it. Is he swamping him in? He's just outscoring him. Now let's talk about what we talked about with his non-charge in the center. I was like, what is he doing here? And it's because he's going for the steal. I've seen the play. He's using. Yeah, he's going to pinch it. So this unit of Deathwing Knights is obviously going to charge into these Blight Lords and try and take them out, or probably take them out, or get in the fight. However, in counterplay, he's got the Plague Burst Crawlers, he's got the Lord of Virulence, he's also got this Rhino full of another unit of 10 Plague Marines. They pile out, they get the cheeky charge into the back, they drop on the objective at the same turn, which is going to be huge, and then grab this objective off him and sweep the board. He's actually, Tom, we're seeing a classic pincer.
We've got it. We're seeing the Nikos classic, mate. But I tell you what, this has all happened because of one mistake John made, and we talked about it in turn 1, and that was he
not
didn't
getting good at the game.
Center. Oh, that was harsh. He didn't push the center. He didn't push it.
Yeah.
And that is Stephen Nikos. All of this freedom. Because the only things that can charge him are these Deathwing Knights. And even then, long charge, and he completely gives up any scoring on Stubborn Defiance for the entire game. The entire game. So basically, we have got no ability to push into the center, and Nikos has used that to just threaten everything.
And again, it's come down to, like we said at the top of the show, like we said at the start of the game, movement. Movement is changing is how this game is working, and it's because of that. It's a small change, but it's a big change. That Rhino pick, yeah.
Right, Nikos, move this Mason Axe. Move this Mason Axe and move it to block off the space. Come on. Ah, you fucker.
Pete, thank you very much for pointing that out. Just don't forget Dark Angels can shoot while locked in combat now.
It's okay. It's only 4 intercessors. It's not. We don't really give a shit. Despite all the CP that's been poured into them, I'm not massively confident.
Well, we still have the Lord of Contagion has still got to go as well, and he is going to slap out. There's three intercessors left. So John's chosen not to use his very few CP left.
He's got one guy running back to the Deathwing Apothecary on this side, mate. Come on.
he's terrified.
Yeah. Give him his full dues. Come on.
Yeah. So what we're seeing here is the Lord of Contagion is going to engage as well, and he is going to potentially slap a few more out of here. We might even see a morale check actually important.
feel like you could make a great conversion with this model where instead of that weird looking axe, he's just holding a bass guitar and
The
then he
Lord of
slaps.
Contagion's a super cool model, man. Super cool.
Yeah,
Like, big fan of that
absolutely.
model. Yeah, yeah.
But, yeah, that's
My
definitely
favourite
a
thing
conversion.
probably about this game is
Oh my
the
God, what's that?
painting meta that we're seeing involved. They're both excellently painted. I can't choose who's winning the painting meta here. Tom, have you got any thoughts on that?
Well, let's have a look at all these models here. Yes. Well, I'm already going to have to dock Scriver some points because these intercessors are unbased here. Okay. I'm going to have to. In fact, most of his army's unbased apart from these Deathwick Knights. He's going to lose 5 points of that one. But then if I look at like Nikos's army is like really swingy. He's got some really nice bases on his characters here. They even have smells coming out the bottom of that plague surgeon. But everything else is unbased again. So they're both going to lose a couple of points on that one. I feel like if you look at the greens on Nikos's, he's done a lot of weathering work, which looks super cool. But if you look at Scrivo's, it's very much just like a flat paint, but equally he's got a lot of freehand. If you look at the front of the Leviathan Dreadnought, for example, not only does he look like fucking Iron Man, but he's also got this freehand on the left-hand side, which shows that he's a third Chemos. I don't know what the lore is.
It looks great.
Yeah,
Great.
that looks fantastic. So
well done. Painting
there's some
meta,
point
very
stops
important.
everywhere, but there's some really lovely painting going on here. It's amazing that they've managed to produce these armies in just 30 minutes so we could play this game on stream. Just stellar work from both of these.
Yeah,
well
done. They've done really well getting these guys up to the painting standard that we really do expect to see from Tabletop 40k.
Yeah, 40k has some fantastic fantastic levels. Can we talk about Razor Banners, please? I'm pretty certain that Nikos is going to get one. Yeah, he has. He's got one from these Plague Marines have jumped out in the top right. He's raised a banner.
He has raised a banner.
I don't know how he raised his banner on the other side, though. Like we'd have to work that out. Okay, so the character has indeed raised a banner. So he's using his expensive, fighty, smelly, scenic-based character to raise a banner. Good job, Plague Surgeon. We're all rooting for you. So that looks like it's going, decently well for him. But in terms of Razor banners for Scrivo's side, there has been no banner raising. I would hope we would see a banner raised on this left-hand side with the Deathwing Knights, but that's probably going to get taken away by the Blight Lord Terminators, assuming that Scrivo is not able to kill at least two of these bad boys.
Just Tom, just let us catch everyone up where we are in the phases. We are now into we were in the command phase for the Dark Angels, and now we're into the movement phase. They scored no primary points in turn 2. No primary points in turn 2. Now, don't forget they are going to get the opportunity to score in turn 5 because they are going second. So they got the opportunity there, and here they come on the charge. Looks like that unit, who was the more forward-pushing unit, hasn't moved towards the centre. Tom, you and me, bit furious about that not being the case. So I think that's going to be interesting because we really did expect that unit to push into the centre. It looks like they're not.
But he wants his 2 points now, mate. He wants his 2 points from his stubborn defiance now, rather than charging into the centre and just punishing Nick for this. Especially considering if you make that charge into both of those rhinos, you're going to end up blocking off that entire section and they have to walk through the wall, and then it's a bit of a faff, really, isn't it? And also, it means that Nikos would then be the one who is under the caution, is needing to apply some agency to the game. It looks like Scrivo is responding to what Nikos is doing rather than the other way around. Whereas Scrivo could instead force his knights into the center, block Nikos off, and then Nikos would have to react, and it'd be a tit for tat kind of game. Instead, it very much looks like Nikos is the beatdown, and Scrivo is the one responding and trying to get around him rather than the other way around.
Yeah, I agree. He really does need to engage in all of the areas at the same time, but he can't do that. And I think we're starting to see Nick's strategy come to the fruition, which is he's pushed the enemy army in very, very centrally. And that, he's got a lot. I mean, he's absolutely going to win back this bottom objective. Absolutely. But at what cost? Don't forget the Lord of Contagion. He's got his Warlord trait, which is now bubbled out quite far, which is reroll. You can't reroll to hit or to wound around him. That's pretty important. So that's going to affect that Chapter Master and the units that are engaged with the Chapter Master as well. So we'll see how much that affects this unit and this fight. There's a lot of hurt and hate being directed towards these Plague Marines, though. and they are probably not long for this world. However, the rest of the board, though, Nick's got it covered. Like, if you're talking about it, like, yeah, he doesn't have it covered for the next 3 turns, maybe, but he's got it covered for maybe enough that he's scoring pretty heavily.
Dude.
If no one engages these rhinos, he's probably going to score more next turn, taking him to a primary of 20. He's already started working on his secondaries as well with some raised banners, so that's super important. And ultimately, he probably isn't going to lose. So he's in a good spot. And again, like we've said, this unit of Deathwings, they've decided to move. They've moved a little bit further down instead of in a straight line, looking to maybe charge around the back of this unit, which would be quite good for the Dark Angels and would be a negative for the good old Blightlord Terminators. They've still got 2 flails in the list, and they've still got 2 Plague Spewers though. Go on after you, Tom.
I was going to say, I mean, Nikos has completely shat all over Scriver's points here. I mean, he's not going to be getting many points, as we've already talked about a lot, for Stubborn Defiance. He's not going to be getting many points for the Raised Banners either. The only one he may be getting a lot of points from is the While We Stand, While We Fight on the 2 Deathwing Knight squads and on the Leviathan Dreadnought, which I can't really see Nikos being able to kill, but we already knew that because we knew he couldn't touch Scriver's army at all in the first place. Nikos' secondaries, on the other hand, he's going to get a couple of points of raised banners that immediately matches Stubborn Defiance, and will probably go then some because he's got a lot of screening in terms of being able to push the rhinos back across to that bottom right-hand corner and just keep this top right-hand corner objective safe. He's also going to get points for While We Stand, While We Fight, although I don't think he'll get the maximum because I think he's going to lose the squad of Plague Marines at the bottom right, and I think there's a decent chance that he loses the squad of Blightlord Terminators as well at some point of the game, so maybe he's getting 10-5 there, so he's dropping a couple of points. But his despoiled ground he can definitely achieve in some way, especially with these rhinos that he's going to have to be pushing around.
Okay, so talking about, we're into the shooting phase. We're heavily into the shooting phase for the Dark Angels, and they are targeting all of their shots into this unit of Blightlord Terminators. So still seeing them, so this is the Leviathan first, still seeing them as a major threat. So those Leviathan Dreadnought, those Terminators, taking a whole bunch of hate. And it's going to be interesting to see what he does remove. He's still got those 2 Plague Spewers. He's obviously going to want to use those. They're brilliant for that Overwatch if he wants to, if not just to chip off a little bit. He's still got those Flails of Contagion as well, which he's also going to want to keep, I think, in the list as well. But he's also got, don't forget his character, his unit champion, he's got the Skull of Glothilithia as well. So it's going to be very interesting to see who he decides to take out. The Plague Surgeon is there. He, of course, Tom, is giving that 6-up DPR. So -1 to wound, 6-up DPR, a very tanky unit who's taking some hate from halfway across the board from this Leviathan Dreadnought. Last time they didn't do badly. They lost 7 of their number. They were 10. They're down. No, sorry, they lost 3, not 7. John has just done 3 mortal wound. That's from 6s to hit. On the Leviathan Dreadnought. Yeah, it's pretty rough.
That's a whole Blightlord Terminator, mate. That's spooky.
Yeah. And then obviously being able to do, he's got his 6s as well. His DPR save from the Plague Surgeon. Wow.
Yeah. So we're now down to 5 Terminators, which means we're already either. Oh, hold up. No, is that a lot? No, it's a lot of variants. Okay. We're now down to matching numbers of models between the Deathwing Knights and the Blightlord Terminators, which means that the objective would be contested if he doesn't lose any more models. But I feel like he's going to lose a couple there. But it doesn't matter because, as we talked about earlier, we've got those Plague Marines that are about to come barreling out of a rhino, which. So the Deathwing Terminators with the rerolls from the Chapter Master, so that's basically just the only Terminators with guns, are going to have a pop up the Plague Marines themselves rather than, just waiting, I guess, which is fine. And now that all the Intercessors are gone, it makes them a very, very easy target for shooting. And that range might be a little bit too much against a Blightlord Terminator. So the Assault Cannon's going to come in first. You're probably going to see a couple of these Plague Marines drop here, and I'd be interested to see which ones Nikos takes off the board. I think if I was Nikos, I'd probably want to take off stuff from the back here, but that wouldn't like by that I mean the far right hand side. But you've also got the flails over there, so I think you'd want to take off the axes and the knives. But then you need to be really careful with your coherency as well, because you don't want to have people just running off the board. So you need to make sure you're checking your measurements there. Make sure you've got guys within 2 inches consistently around the board. So you've got 2 guys within 2 inches, so you should be fine. One guy's already gone off with the assault cannon.
It's
interesting.
It's interesting, Tom, though, that he knew this damage was coming in. Like he knew that he was putting these guys in for a world of hate. He knew. Yeah, he made the long bomb charge. He knew what it was about. So this feels calculated. It feels hugely calculated. And ultimately, the Dark Angels are putting no pressure into the center at all. The best they're going to be able to do with a long charge is obviously swamp and flood this objective here, which is cool. Next turn after that, they're going to get into the mid-board. That's going to be turn 3. Turn 4, maybe they'll threaten this top objective. Maybe turn 4. And that still leaves turn 5. He obviously could just screen out, though, with that unit of Plague Marines. There's a very viable there. He could also screen out with this. He can also screen out with this Rhino, and I 100% think that's what we're going to see. We're going to see this Rhino run over onto that objective. So the Stormbolt was doing no wounds in the shooting phase, which is where we're at now. So Nick playing a very, very defensive game here and looking to swamp them in.
Very defensive game with your Lobbolt, your stuff into close combat. I love it. But it's also had the effect of dragging Scrivo all the way to its right-hand side. And we were talking a bit earlier about how on the left-hand side, you've only got a squad of Deathwing Knights and a Redemptor Dreadnought. Well, soon you're only going to have a Redemptor Dreadnought as these Deathwing Knights go stomping up the board to try and charge down these Blight Lords, which is going to take a while to get through. So I very much feel like Nikos is in a very, very good position in this game, which is very surprising given the initial matchup.
Yeah, I think it's amazing how this game has turned out. I would say though, so we're playing the Scouring, as you guys can see on the board. So it's those 5 objectives, and I really do think the fact that you've got to score 2 just to get 5 primary points is really, really important. It changes how you play this massively. And again, looking at the board as well, I think I've lost the ability to draw on the screen for some reason. Don't know why. Just reset itself. But if you guys look at the center. And if you look at the actual terrain, and I'll take you kind of on a tour through it, there's some really, really nice fire lanes into that center. So if you did want to move into the center, and you could, absolutely, there's great opportunity for the opposing player to bring a lot of shooting and hate to bear into that center objective. So actually, quite hard to score that 3 and go for those 10 victory points. And I think it would be quite interesting if we looked at the stats, and I will go and try and grab that out for next time. What we would end up seeing for the how many primaries we've seen scored on this mission, because it seems like it's a hard one to get that main 45.
Absolutely,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not only because of the 2 objectives, 3 objectives hold more, but because of where the objectives are, man.
Yes.
You need to have a big scrum in the middle and then push your opponent off and have them have no reasonable way of then taking the center objective off you, which I feel like is a very, very hard thing to do. And something
I think it's a big win. It's a win mission, win more. So what I mean by that is if you're dominating, you're really going to dominate. But if you're not, and it's a bit of a split, a balance of power, which is what I think we're seeing now. I think what you end up with is a much lower scoring game. And actually, maybe Nick's thought about this ahead of time, and he's thought, do you know what? I know he hasn't, because I told him like 2 minutes before we started the game. But
just give him the credit. Just shut the fuck up.
Yeah, we'll give him the credit. But maybe Nick's thought about this beforehand, and he's thought, or maybe just the mission, or just maybe the mission has played into his playstyle.
Potentially, I feel like, well, looking at this mission specifically, it's impossible to score 10 points in a primary, right? Because if you're holding 3, you are holding more. So if you are able to get that, it does become, like you said, feast or famine. So if Nikos can hold on to these 3... In fact, Nikos is going to get 15 points. What?
Yes, he's absolutely going to get 15 points next turn.
Oh, my word. This game is doomed.
This
game is so over.
He's absolutely getting 15 points next turn. And actually, in retaliation, not 100% certain that he's not going to get 15 the turn after as well. Whereas John is going to get maybe 5.
Scrivo is going to be at the end of his turn. At the end of his
3.
turn 3 is going to be 20 points to 5 down on the primary, and I don't see how he can necessarily smash that primary.
Oh,
Maybe
okay. Well, Scriver
goes.
maybe thinking this through a little bit. So we've seen the Deathwing Terminators at the bottom. Is that right? It's the Deathwing Terminators firing into this unit of Poxwalkers, looking to. Oh, sorry. The Redemptor Dreadnought is firing into the Poxwalkers.
I'm not sure how much I like that.
Yeah, so he's seen the threat and he's decided to shoot through them. He knows he's got the charge off with the Deathwing Knights. He's happy with that. I think also there's the interrupts important here as well. He knows, Nick knows with his Death Guard that the Dark Angels are going to multi-charge him all over the board. That gives him the ability to interrupt, which is quite nice. So he's got that 2 CP interrupt. And so really he is going to have to activate with this unit of Deathwing Knights at the bottom, because they are unsupported, which does mean this unit of Death Guard, Plague Marines, or the Lord of Contagion are going to get basically a free swing at whatever's going into them. And that's not bad. Maybe this is the turn we're going to see him activate all of those strats, and he's just going to go all the way in 2 CP for interrupt, overspill damage, +1 to wound. We're going to see all of that pushed in. Oh, okay, so the Redemptor decided to switch up actually and went for the Terminators and not the... Oh, so we saw plasma. We saw the split shots from the Redemptor here. The Redemptor shot into the Blight Lords, did nothing, and then we're seeing the rest of the shots going into the Poxwalkers. So actually, I don't feel like Death Guard are in too bad a position here, considering they are being charged by about 800 years worth of Terminators there.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how quickly these Deathwing Knights go through these Blight Lord Terminators, because I feel if they don't just eat them, then the game is doomed. They do need to kill their way through all these Blight Lord Terminators, because otherwise there's no way Nikos is ever going to threaten this back objective on the back left, which means that he's going to be securing guaranteed primary points every turn, seeing as it's going to be hard to push him off the top right. You need to be pushing him on down to at least having one objective. And also means he's going to be farming those Razor Banners points. We have lost a couple of Poxwalkers though. We've lost 5, which Nikos is going to take off.
Don't forget we have got that cheeky back pocket stratagem to bring back potentially 9 from that as well. They're also not going to run away, so they're fine with that. That's not a drama. I mean, the Plague Burst Crawlers are also going to get to see some play over the next couple of turns. We're going to get to see some Plague Spitters fired into this unit of Deathwing Knights. We're going to get to see more pot shots fired, which I think is useful as well. Okay, so that's all the shooting over. We lost another 2 of those Blight Lord Terminators, so we have lost 5 over the course of 2 turns of shooting. And we also lost 2 Plague Marines out of this brick of 10. So we've got 8 Plague Marines left, 5 Blight Lord Terminators left. We've got another 10 Plague Marines trapped inside this Rhino. And we haven't lost much for the Deathwing Knights. They've lost... Not Deathwing Knights, sorry. The Dark Angels. They've obviously lost that brick of 10 Intercessors. That was pretty important, but they've still got major threats. They've got all of these different Terminator units. They've got the Leviathan Dreadnought and the Redemptor, just do what they like with. They've got all their characters. They've got Azrael. And, they're ready to rock, ultimately. So we're going to see these charges.
Yeah. These bottom right guys are going to get absolutely murdered, which is why I hope that Scrivo strikes with the top left first.
Me too.
Because these bottom right guys are going to get slaughtered regardless of whether they get to interrupt for 2CP and fight back. You might lose a couple of guys in the process, but honestly, you also might lose a couple of guys that paired for Blight Lord Terminators, and you need to be pushing onto this objective as we discussed earlier. So he's having a bit of a move around. I feel like he's scared of a countercharge coming in from these Plague Marines on the other side. I don't think the Plague Marines necessarily want to kill these Deathwing Knights. I'd be more concerned that Nikos is going to advance a Rhino, charge a Rhino onto this objective, and the next turn he can threaten anything he wants with those Plague Marines. I don't think the Plague Marines need to get out next turn.
No, I don't know if they even will get out this turn. But he is going to want to push these Deathwing Knights. Nick not deciding, so the Death Guard deciding not to overwatch with those 2 units of Plague Spewers in them as well. Thinking that they probably won't do very much for that 1 CP usage. That he's sat on 5 right now, so that interrupt's going to cost him 2. Whether or not he stacks any other CP with that when he does interrupt, I think is going to be the interesting choice. John is only sat on 4 CP, so that's going to be... He's not going to need to spend it on transhuman this turn, because the rest of his army is transhuman, which is you can only be wounded on 4s, which is pretty rough. And don't forget those the flails of contagion. Now, Tom, you might not know this, but there's a bit of a drama between these two armies in of themselves. Both of them love a flail. They love flails. Yeah, they love them. They love them.
Okay.
However, the issue is with the Death Guard book, the flail of contagion became -1 to hit if you did use it, and then also, unfortunately, didn't carry its wounds. Used to, before the new codex, used to spill over, very much like you see in Age of Sigmar. However, they didn't do that, and they took that away from the flail, which is the two flails that we see over here in this unit of Blight
Okay,
Lords.
so they took it away from Dark Angels too, right?
No. Dark Angels got to keep it, so their flail...
It's because it's got holy incense in it, mate, rather than just fart
it does
smells.
get to carry its wound over, but it's also it is -1 to hit. No, it's not. It's not -1 to hit. It still hits on a 2.
Oh,
so
okay.
Very effective. The flail isn't -1 to hit. Are you sure?
That's a flail of a corruption. I don't know if that's is that a relic? I don't know. But either
No.
way, it doesn't carry its damage over.
I thought the flail was -1 to hit. So
whatever.
I'll double check that. Oh, never mind then. Are you sure? Double check that for me.
So chat, go check.
Yeah.
Thank you, chat.
Double check that for me. I
Good
thought
job,
it was.
chat. Thank you.
The cleaver is -1 to hit.
It looks like some dice are being rolled over here, which means, oh, look at this. Oh, my word. Oh, Rob, how do you feel about this? So, you know how we said that Scrivo had been dragged all the way over to his right-hand side a bit? Mm-hmm. Well, now he's definitely been dragged all the way to his right-hand side a bit.
He has gone all the way. He's rolled an 11-inch charge. He's thought, I'll take that.
Safe as houses, mate.
Does he know that that's not? Does he know that's not where none of the other objectives are?
Ah, mate, can we make him play Speckles?
Come on.
He's swinging with. Wait. Is he swinging with a chaplain first? He isn't.
What?
The chaplain is swinging first.
Okay, so the chaplain is charged in. Where is the chaplain? There he is. The chaplain is
breaking the bottom right. What is he? Like, he's a mate.
Tom, articulate your feelings. Why are you unhappy with the decision of this?
Because we've been speaking all game about the entire reason why Nick can completely abuse a positioning on both of these objectives is because Scrivo isn't in the middle of the board, and Scrivo has taken all of the stuff that was in the middle of the board, or at least closest to it, even if it was suboptimal, it wasn't all the way in, and he's taken it and lobbed it into the bottom right corner of the board. So Nikos, this army that now needs to be everywhere to get both its faction secondary, the despoiled ground, and the Razor banners, has complete free reign over 4 of the 5 objectives because there weren't Plague Marines on them. We've then been through why we wanted Scrivo to fight with these Deathwing Knights at the top left first. Now, you could say, fair enough, maybe if he fights with the Deathwing Knights in the top left first, Nikos is going to interrupt with the Plague Marines. Because you're still going to have all Plague Marines left, and maybe you could take a couple of guys off. That is far less of a bad scenario than interrupting with the Blight Lords and murdering some Deathwing Knights, so you completely lose this side of the board without any intervention from Nikos. Now, maybe the second best thing to do would be to fight with a unit that actually hurts the Plague Marines in the bottom right corner. Instead, not only are we not fighting with the Deathwing Knights in the top left, we are fighting with the fucking Terminator chaplain in the bottom right-hand corner of the board, which has minimal attacks, even with his stupid litany, which I really hope he didn't cast, because I hope he's cast for re-roll to hit for all the core, because you're surrounded by core.
We'll find out. We'll find out. Did he get? It's a great round. I loved all of it. Some good inflection there. Have we got re-rolls to hit from the litany? Or did we get the? Did the +1 attack litany on himself?
Please go and can you just give me 2 minutes? Cover for me, okay?
So we've seen. So instead of being able to reroll 1s to hit on all of this army, which I'd like to point out mainly hits on 2s, although he has killed the Lord of Contagion, so maybe a win. That does get rid of Arch Contaminator, and it does get rid of the ability to... there's he has got rid of the ability to make it so that he cannot re-roll to hits and wounds, which was the contagion that we saw here. Don't forget, when he does die, he's going to explode and cause some mortal wounds. No, Scrivo, the players can't hear us. This is like proper coverage. So our table boss, Matt, is informing us of everything that's happening right now, which is nice.
Yeah, so I feel like we need partner as soon as possible, Rob, so we can make that face of me after I got seized on in every single game of Blood and Glory, just a chat emote, just to convey my disappointment. Scrimo's reading the chat.
Give him no advice, chat. No, give him no advice. He's doing great. He's doing really well, and he should be proud of himself. Just keep writing in the chat, Scrivo. You're doing great.
He's providing us a great game with some fantastic content. Okay,
yeah.
That's what he's doing.
Yeah. Right, so it's now whether or not Nick is going to spend the inevitable 2 CP to interrupt at the bottom. We're just going to find out from our table boss now. I'm pretty certain that's what we're going to see.
Yes, Nikos intervene. Come on.
Well, I mean, to be fair, so actually, let's talk about this for a minute, John. Not John, sorry, Tom. He's only got the he's got the Tunits of Blight Lords with Plague Spewers. So they've just got bubotic axes, and then of course he's got the 2 flails. So he hasn't got like loads. I mean, the flails are pretty good.
Yeah, if you could tip the scales on this left-hand side, then you basically just won the game, right?
Yes.
Like, the only way Scrivo can get back into this is if he pushes, if he's Deathwing Terminators with the top left. If Nikos can use any CP to create some kind of advantage in the top left, then it's going to make it even harder for Scrivo. Even if he just, like, kills a guy or takes a couple of wounds off, it's going to make it a lot harder for Scrivo to do too much. But it looks like Nikos is going to interrupt with those Blight Lord Terminators. He's also making sure that all of his guys are within engagement range individually, so Scrivo can't spend 1 CP to prevent certain guys from attacking. Very good, Micro. Very well aware. We like it. So we, hopefully we should get some damage through here. I don't know. I'm not like massively familiar with the damage profiles of the flails because I haven't really seen them. I've seen them fight some Helverins. That was probably helpful.
No problem, Tom. I got your back, baby. I have got you back. Give me but a moment. So they're carrying over is going to be. Oh, hold on. Give me a second. No, it's going to be more than a second apparently.
Yeah.
Missed that Age of Sigmar app for 40k. If only there was an app like it.
Is the Age of Sigmar, is their app updated now?
Oh, it's not that. It's just that it's like a datasheet app. Is really like what I love about it.
Yeah.
However, I
can
tell you.
Worked out how to put my datasheets in.
It's just who cares? It's the 2 part. Oh. No.
All right, the attacks are rolling in for the Blight Lord Terminators. The suspense is killing me. I want to see how much damage we get.
So the axes have done nothing so far, Tom. They've not done the work that we've needed them to do.
It's okay. The flails are the scary bits. Okay,
the flails are the scary bits, which is good because they are going to be strength 5, AP 2, and damage 2. However, each time an attack is made with this weapon, you make 2 attacks. So Tom, each flail is basically going to pump out 6 attacks. That's 12 attacks hitting on 2s. However, hit on 2s, and they're going to be wounding on 4s, obviously, because of transhuman.
Ones are plague weapons, mate.
Yeah. But they're not going to be wounded on 2s. But then AP 2, and then they're going to do 2 damage apiece.
Okay.
So
it doesn't matter about the reroll ones to wound if you don't roll any ones to wound, Rob.
It's
so
true.
We'll have to see. Oh, hello. Or is that one coming in here? No, it's just the saves coming in hot. So
he's only gone and got himself 1 Terminator. I mean, he's reduced.
Still fine.
Yeah, it's still good. He's reduced the input coming in. That's not too bad. I'd probably take that. Over time.
Absolutely, mate. Yeah, because now you've only got 4 guys swinging back at you, which means you're going to lose fewer guys in return. And then when you get to fight next turn, you get to, you just keep going, and you basically also mean that it's harder for Scrivo to actually push into you because we've got fewer attacks coming into you now. But also, theoretically, if this fight was happening on objective, you'd now be holding it, wouldn't you? So I guess it's fine. So probably head back to the bottom right combat over here and to the units that might actually kill something rather than the stupid Terminator Chaplain. So
The Terminator Chaplain, to be fair, killed a Lord of Contagion, which is pretty cool. Which
yeah, I'm
isn't
sure
the
that
Warlord.
really swung the game.
Again, target priority focus here.
Yeah, I mean, it is a big, scary man, and he probably has some significance to Papa Nurgle. Unfortunately, he doesn't have so much significance to the scoreboard, which means that I don't really value him massively.
Full Green in the chat says he still maintains that tournament coverage should be mid to lower tables. I promise you. It's just how entertaining we are that we're making this fun.
I mean, we could do this
too. We could make a top tier game just as fun, couldn't we, Tom?
I reckon we could just make a better game than this. Not like a game of 40k, just make a better system.
Priority roll, let's go. That's what we want to see. So we just...
It's 40k of a priority roll, that's all it's going to be.
I mean, it's pretty cool.
It would improve it too.
Yeah. Right, so we're seeing so these are the strike backs now into the Plague Marines. So they are going to take a bit of a kicking now. I wonder what he's going to leave. He's got a flail still. He's got axe and knife still. Mace and axe cleaver. So back in combat over here.
Chat.
Yeah.
Sorry, you go for it.
Dude, our days are legend.
You selling me, but Scribbo was playing casual when he brought a bunch of Deathwing Knights. It's absolute bollocks, and you should be ashamed.
Excuse me. We're actually a competitive channel. We're a narrative channel now, Tom. Because all
competitive
the
is narrative.
Yeah, competitive is narrative.
Yeah, that's not mutually exclusive, Rob. Get with the program.
I'm with it. I'm part of the program. So in the swing back, the Deathwing Knights only took out one Blightlord Terminator. And
one for one.
One for one. They're over the moon about that because that means over time, this bottom right objective is all theirs. They've obviously got the Lord of Virulence. Also, Tom, let's talk about it. Like, let's not dog on this system and let's not dog on Games Workshop. I don't know if you remember, but Games Workshop want you, and Nick wants you to buy a Lord of Virulence. This Lord of Virulence has got a very unique stratagem.
Let me just go to the Games Workshop website.
Huh? I don't want.
They can't hear him, Rob.
I don't want a Lord of Virulence. But the Lord of Virulence has got a stratagem unique to the Lord of Virulence, Tom.
Oh my, what's it do, Rob?
So it's a blight bombardment. And I don't know if you know, there is a lot of units swamped in this bottom right objective right here. Yeah? Is Nick playing some sort of 4D Ridge Brain mega chess with just trying to make this blight bombardment stratagem work? Is that what we're seeing?
I'd just like to point out, by the way, that the Lord of Virulence is in stock in the UK. Okay. So if you would like to purchase your own Lord of Virulence, you can convert one.
Oh, yeah. So it's not a unique stratagem. He just gets it cheaper.
Is he still on the board?
Yeah, he's still on the board. The Lord of Virulence is the Warlord, in fact, Tom.
I feel like in this scenario, Scrivo is castled anyway, regardless of whether or not Nikos has baited him with all these stupid Plague Marines.
So he's going to be able to use that stratagem, the Blight Bombardment stratagem, and cause... Oh, we've lost a few more Plague Marines. That's a bit of a shame here.
Yeah, but we expected to lose all of those. That's for Deathwing Terminator. It's just having a punch. That's fine. Nikos really is not very happy. I just saw a Blade Marine going flying off into space. But I feel like he expected all those unit models to die, to be honest. And it's another case of, well, even if he kills all these Blade Marines, Nikos doesn't even have to do anything, by the way. Scrivo's only on one objective.
He
doesn't even need to go. And Nikos is still on 3. He could just sit there and laugh.
He's having a great time.
I'm having a great time.
Yeah, I'm having a great time too. It's a real adventure. So in total, 5 wounds done with the Deathwing Terminator. So that's the regular unit of Deathwing Terminators. And now the Apothecary, who apparently also charged in as well, there he is. He's piling. He's having a cheeky swing as well, which is very un-medicine man-like of him. But I imagine Space Marine medicine men probably not the friendliest chaps in the world. So he finished off a Plague Marine, and we've got another wound going into this unit of Plague Marines here. So we've still got a unit of Deathwing Terminators to activate as well. We're
I think you can
down
kill
to
them all,
only
yeah.
5. We're down to only 5 Plague Marines, but that's not bad. They've held up that bit of the board quite a bit. I'd be fascinated to see what happens, Tom, if they manage to pass their attrition test.
I mean, I feel like that's something I haven't even thought about because I just assumed that they would all be dead. But there's a reasonable chance that they get to live at this point.
Yeah, I mean, there's almost half of the wounds still left in that unit. So there's 11 wounds left in 9 wounds left in that unit, which ablatively, obviously, there's an additional 4 on top of that. But here's the big swing now. We're seeing how many gets taken out. It could be most of them, and if it's just down to 1, they're going to fail. Oh, there's just 1 Plague Marine
enough.
down.
That's all you need. Oh, mate, here's what you do. You spend the 2 CP to fall out of combat, because Scrivo should probably be wrapping here, and you fall out backwards to Scrivo's deployment zone, because that's worth 4 command points. 4 victory points for your secondary and despoiled ground. So now Scrivo ever has to send his army to go and kill 1 Plague Marine in cover. Sad. Okay. To kill 1 Plague Marine in cover, or he loses 4 points. But it doesn't matter anyway, because he's gone. And that's very sad.
He is gone. They are unfortunately gone. But, they did well. They tried hard. That's the important point. But those Plague Marines did their job, I think, which was to drag the whole army across the board here, which is sweet for them. So we've ended up with the board state like this at the end of Dark Angel's turn 2. They did go second. Going into Death Guard turn 3, they are going to bring up a big 15 points.
Big chunky points total.
Taking them to a 20-0 lead on the primary.
No, you don't, John.
We're just hearing if the secondaries have been achieved. We'll just I
realised the context is missing for that one.
So we're just seeing if he's got it. He's maybe not got it, or actually, we definitely know he hasn't got it. But
yeah, I read the rules. He has not got it. He's not going to get it next turn either.
He's definitely not. So this is the state of the board. Just to let you know, there is a Rhino in the center. It's got 10 Marines like we just saw murdered off the objective at the top right-hand corner. We've still got this unit of 4 Blight Lord Terminators in a desperate battle with these Deathwing Knights looking to fight off and take this other objective. We've got 15 victory points scored this turn for the Death Guard. They've got this top objective, this center objective, and the bottom left-hand objective. They've got these 2 Plague Burst Crawlers to bring to bear, but let's not discount the Dark Angels. They've got most of their force. Although in the trade, a Lord of Contagion has gone down and 10 Plague Marines. So you're looking at like a 400-point reduction in the Death Guard force in what they're able to do. Yeah. Half of the Blight Lord Terminators are down as well. So a lot of the punch has been removed from the Death Guard force. Unfortunately, there's still those 10 Plague Marines that could do some pretty solid work. And if I was John, I wouldn't mind a cheeky drop out of this Rhino, Tom, and then charge into this unit of Deathwing Knights at the bottom and Azrael, and just make my opponent just run back to protect.
He has to run back anyway. Like, you don't want him in the center. I feel like you take this 3 wound Rhino and you just use it to block this turn.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
absolutely.
Literally
Stick it in his grill.
You're 100% right. We're going to see those Rhinos play the blocking role now for at least a turn.
Now, they're a little bit slower because he's down to 3 wounds, which means he's down to middle bracket, I believe. But we also do have 2 more points on the board for Nikos as well because of the Razor Banners. So he'll currently be up to 22 at the end of his command phase. So I want to see... I don't know what I want to see Nikos do with these Plague Marines in the center. I feel like I would hold them for another turn because you don't need to hold any more objectives. And you also don't need to go and kick anyone off. So I feel like this Rhino... on the right-hand side, the closest to Scrivo's army, moves over, contests. This other Rhino just sits still where it is, maybe backs up a little bit and turns around so it doesn't have to reverse across the entire face of Scrivo's army. It can just go forwards. And that way it's ready to just dump out the Plague Marines and go and contest one of these objectives if you need to prevent Scrivo from getting some more primaries again.
Yeah, so just to catch everyone up with what's happening, this unit of Blight Lords is actually... is just falling out of combat, which I think is quite interesting, especially as the Deathwing Knights were going to get +1 attack on the charge, and giving them that again is interesting. And instead in the ongoing combat, that would have, I feel like, tipped in the favour of the Death Guard. Lord of Virulence coming to bear, though, with some shooting. Could be interesting. The Poxwalkers maybe owning the objective. Who knows, but... Oh, here we go. So we have, but we are seeing the Blight Bombardment, which is now only costing a single CP, I think. 2 CP. So normally a 3 CP stratagem to drop down to a 2 CP stratagem. He's going to pick a point on the board, and he's going to do damage in AoE around it. A question also coming from the chat about the Leviathans, and specifically the Dreadnoughts. Leviathan Dreadnought here and the Redemptor Dreadnought here, they've mainly put most of their shots into this unit of Blightlord Terminators. Over the course of the game...
Yeah, it's nice, but I don't know if it's necessary. I think it's just funny, right? It's not like you're against Tau and you need to clear out a bunch of drones so you can shoot things. It's just about trying to kill a couple of extra models, really, isn't it, Rob?
Yeah, I think also reduce the damage efficacy. Oh, we've got a bit of narrative there.
Look at that.
There you go. There's the Blight Bombardment. It's dropped down.
That's far too bright and nice looking.
I think he's been focusing on bringing down that. If you can bring down the efficacy, like the damage output of any of these, even if you just pinged off a Terminator out of each unit, that's decent. That's decent. They're going to have to foot slog. You know, he's got the Plague Burst Crawlers. He could probably fire. I doubt he'll actually kill anything. But, you know, again, whittle them down. I mean, really, I'd be focusing on this unit of Deathwing Knights at the front. And my only reason for that is they're the guys who are just that little bit closer. The other guys are almost a movement phase behind and away from them. So I'd just be looking to whip in as much damage as I could, to be honest, Tom. And then just take these out because it's a dominant board control for the Death Guard. They've got so much of the board. They've still got this turn of movement. Obviously, they went first and they got up on those objectives. But ultimately, the Dark Angels didn't employ, I would say, very aggressively. And the shooting that we've seen hasn't really done loads and loads. Because it's a split arms force, right? He's got some quality shooting in the Leviathan, he's got some quality shooting in the Redemptor, and then he's got some incredible combat and character buffs. I guess it's true also for the Death Guard. You've got those 2 unit of Plague Burst Crawlers who also can do some... they do some medium shooting. I wouldn't call them quality. They can do some medium shooting. But they can involve themselves in the game, right? But it's got to be about the battle plan. It's also got to be about the mission. This has been the key turning point of the battle between these 2 armies.
Yeah, I mean, I was saying in the Scottish League game I played this week that your army is a currency. Like, having models left on the board doesn't necessarily mean anything at the end of the game if they're not doing anything for you, scoring you points, right?
Yeah, of course.
Sometimes they're just surplus to requirements, and that's because you just absolutely battered stuff. But, I mean, it doesn't actually mean anything how much of your army was killed, right? So while we stand, while we fight, units are obviously needed, but the rest of them, just go ham. You know, you might as well. You need to push this tide of Death Guard back, otherwise you're going to have a serious problem later on in the game.
Mm-hmm. I think it is. I think it's going to be very, very hard, really, for Dark Angels to actually score any of the primaries. Looking at turn 3 next, they're not even going to score another 5 VP at all. They haven't scored 5 VP at all. So that's turn 3. Turns 4 and 5 coming up. They're going to need to get on 3 objectives. They're going to need to get on 2, and then they need to get 3 for 10 victory points. And where are they going to do that from? That's the real question. Are they going to do that in the top, where they've just done the Blight Bombardment? They're definitely not going to do it at the bottom. They're not going to get any of those 2 objectives. So the real question is, are they going to get into the center? And the answer is no, simply.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, just looking at projections now, right? I feel like you can map it out a little bit. Nikos, I think, is going to get 12 points to spoiled ground. I think he's going to get... So he's already lost 1 unit of While We Stand, While We Fight. I think he's going to get... 5 points for While We Stand, While We Fight. And then I think by the end of the game, it's his turn 3 right now, right? So I feel like he's going to get another 4... So 2 points next turn, 2 points turn after, end game points. So that's another 6 points. So he should be up to 8 points on his raised banners. So that would put Nikos on 25 secondary points. If I'm looking at Scrivos, I feel like he's getting 5 points on Stubborn Defiance. I feel like he's going to get 10 points on his While He's Down While He Fights, because he's now losing a couple more of his Definitely Notes on the top left. And then I think he's going to probably get, in his turn 3, if he raises the banner, he'll get 4, 5, and then one more point on the end of the game. So he'll get 3. So that'll put Scrivo on 18 points for his secondary. So he'll be 7 points behind in secondaries, which means he'd need to beat Nikos by 7 points in the primaries, which is hard considering he's not scored any in his first turn where he could score primaries. He's not going to score any in his second turn where he can score primaries, and Nikos scored a 15 last turn. I feel like he's going to have to 15 Nikos out the wazoo, and I don't think he has the movement for it.
I don't think he has the movement for it at all, Tom. But while we were working out the future and scrying into the orb of points to come, during the actual turn right now, we saw some horrific shooting going into this unit of Deathwing Knights.
Oh my word.
We've lost 2 of them already.
Oh, wow. What shot, Rob?
So, yeah, it was the Skull of Clothier on the Blight Lord champion.
Is that the thing that you pop and then it does mortal wounds?
7 dice. 6 is a D3 mortal wounds, 5 ups. So 2 to 5s are a mortal wound, and he rolled 2 6s.
Yeah, so it's not necessarily like shooting or anything like that necessarily. It's more you just pop the once per game thing.
Pop the ability. But that's a massive, right? Because you've been able to do it while falling back. So this unit of Blight Lord Terminators have done the mortal wounds out of this unit while still falling back, which is key, right? And now they've down their number reduced to 2. We've still got the Plagueburst Scrawl if he wants to go in. We've still got the Lord of Virulence in his output, as well as him in close combat. So it's looking like a very dominant bottom flank, and this is going to be super, super fine for these guys to start enacting and pushing. They could even clear this and start to threaten or even support the centre as well.
Yeah, I think the one turnaround, though, is that Nikos absolutely needs to kill these guys now, because otherwise they could just run past these Blight Lord Terminators and just try and start clobbering these Poxwalkers and taking this raised banner off the board. So he does need to kill these guys. Otherwise, he's going to have a little bit of a point swing back, but I don't think it's necessarily enough. What Scrivo needs to do is he needs to start pushing now. He needs to start pushing really, really hard. The problem he's got, again, is the unit he's closest in the best position to push with, aka the Deathwing Knights on the right-hand side. He needs to keep them there for the purpose of his own Stubborn Defiance, right? So we've got that problem again, where the unit that he can charge with, he really wants to keep where it is, which is going to make it very, very hard for him to push out. What do you think you keep him there, Rob, or do you think you go for it with them and then sack off the 5 points?
I think he's just going to be in a holding pattern now. I think he's got the game. He just needs to hold off, which I think is going to be the path to victory. As you can see, this unit, a really clever play here. He's pushed this Rhino up, and he's put the 5 Marines nearby. Now, if the Rhino dies, the Rhino dies. But it's blocking any charges into the Marines, which was the major issue. And then the Marines can countercharge. But what he's also doing is if no one attacks the Rhino, he's alive, he can put this unit of Marines in the Rhino and nip off next turn. So he's given himself some options here. Into the shooting phase, the Plagueburst Crawler has decided to split his shots, Tom?
Yeah. So it looks like he's going to be firing a couple of shots into the Deathwing Knights, I would assume. Not sure where the second unit is going to go, though. So we've still got some decent shooting.
So what we're seeing
is so therefore I'm assuming it's a top left one.
Yeah, the top Plagueburst Crawler is shooting it's firing into the Deathwing Knights at the bottom with its big mortar, and it's firing the rest into the front unit of Deathwing Knights over here.
So is that one on the top left? Sorry, Rob. Sorry.
Yeah, near the Rhino is the one, and then we're probably going to see the other. So I'm orientated where the Lord of Virulence is the bottom. This is the bottom.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
So the Plagueburst Crawler here still to fire as well. So see how it does, and then see if that fires into the Deathwing Knights as well. So just generally looking to whittle them down, I think. Oh, so 6. He's rolled big 6 on the amount of mortar shots, though, Tom.
And
interesting. Yeah, he's only wounded once, I think. Which is a shame. So that transhuman coming in massive again for that. For those,
and he saved as well. It's a big 6 coming in. So nothing off that massive 6 that came in for the number of shots that have been fired. But I don't know. The shooting isn't too impactful at this point. It's the movement's the issue, right? You've got a lot of blocks coming around across the board, and you're already so far away because you've ran off after all this stuff. So we're firing the other plate bus crawler now. That's going to fire its mortar into 2 remaining Deathwing Knights. And I've probably been tempted to put the other mortar in there as well, just to try and kill these guys off and finish them off. But maybe Nikos is banking that Plague Surgeon and the Lord of Virulence are going to finish it off themselves, because you've got 1 wound on one of Deathwing Knights, and then you've just got the Nightmaster and the Watcher in the Dark. So you don't really have too much left in that squad. So it looks like it hasn't done anything yet. It has got a couple of wounds. So it's done no damage whatsoever. Scriver rolling some good saves on that side. Looks like there isn't too much shooting left to be done by Nikos over here. So it may be straight into the fight phase. So it looks like
there's not a lot of shooting at all. Tom, a couple of the interesting things about things that we aren't seeing here is psychers. Really, neither force have got a psyker. Yeah. I was wondering what you thought, because both have got access to some great psychic powers that we're not seeing engaged right now. Yeah.
Yeah, especially with the Dark Angels. I mean, I think one of the issues that John has had is not necessarily being able to push Nikos off the objectives. I mean, I don't really think he's taken a massive advantage out of that anyway, just because he hasn't really pushed up him and said, hey, who's got more OBSEC models? Let's see what happens. So we don't really need to use that kind of thing. But it is such a powerful psychic power, but it allows you, even if you're losing some of these trades, which I don't think you would be anyway, you're still going to hold that objective, because you're stripping the objective secured straight off those Death Guard units. And Nikos now needs to buddy up and take multiple Death Guard units around the board. The Lord of Virulence now, as we were talking about earlier, is going into the Deathwing Knights, but it's only going to be in range of 1. Although that said, you can still pile into the other unit. He has a Plague Claw. He's going to be swinging with the 5 attacks, so it is quite swingy, especially with that transhuman. You've got 4+ to wound maximum, so the strength doesn't really matter. The AP isn't going to matter too much either with the Storm Shield, so you've got a 4+ vulnerable save there. 4+ has obviously been very, very swingy. Either happens or it doesn't. It's the definition of a 50-50. And you've got multiple of those coming through, so you need to flip the coin the right way multiple times, otherwise you're not going to get necessarily some damage done. So that means 3 hits are coming in for the Lord of Virulence with his Plague Claw. That means he's now going to need 4s to wound. Only 3 attacks going in. 2 wounds. I mean, maybe you could use a CP there, but I don't think he needs to. That means we've got invulnerable saves coming in, both of which look like they fail. That's going to be a lot of damage coming through onto those Deathwing Knights, but it's also going to mean that they're going to be stuck in that combat. So there's 1 Nightmaster with a wound left. I want to see that Lord of Virulence piling in, trying to do some tagging to make it very, very difficult, because it means that the Nightmaster then won't be able to fall out and charge anything else, which is going to be a big problem.
Unless he smites him to death, unless he absolutely takes him off the board there. But I think that's unlikely. Ultimately, Lord of Virulence, like a pretty beefy guy. Nick feeling he makes a good reason. Nick has made the suggestion that he's already really decent in a fight. He would take him in his list all the time. He thinks he's got a place inside the army. I don't know why I'm not seeing psychic powers, though, to be honest, here, Tom. Like, I get it. Like, but that miasma would have been huge. +1 toughness.
Yeah, miasma pestilence is massive, especially when you're shooting the Leviathan and all that kind of gubbins of the Blight Lord Terminators. You don't have any forests on this board to generate a -1 to hit for you, unfortunately. So you can get that consistent -1 to hit from the miasma of pestilence, but we don't have it. I think the more egregious one is probably the Dark Angel Psychers, but I feel like Scriver was sandbagging a little bit and wanted to play with his cool Dreadnought. The Lord of Virulence has taken a couple of wounds. He's now down to 4. He's specifically taken 2 wounds, but that doesn't matter. He can probably die in the next assault phase as far as Nikos is concerned. It doesn't really matter. There's no point for killing the Warlord in this game. What you've managed to do is completely shut down this Nightmaster, who has also only got 1 wound, by the way, who will then be gunned down or mobbed down by the Poxwalkers. I want to see the Poxwalkers charging Rob. I think that would be hilarious.
That would be super fun. So that is the end of Death Guard turn 3. Pretty quick turn. A pretty dominant turn ultimately, although they took out there were 4 of these Deathwing Terminators at the bottom when we started this turn. There's one left now with 1 wound at that bottom corner. And as you can see, John, again, not scoring any of the primary points there. He's getting none in this battle plan. In this mission. You are going to be scoring 2. You're going to be scoring... he's going to score 5 points if you hold 2, and he's holding only the 1. I mean, he's dominating 1. He is dominating it. But that is about the best he can do. He's lost... early in turn 2, for Death Guard, we did lose the Talon Master, which one of his mobile pieces to be able to project power. So he went down to a hail of fire from Blightlord Terminators and also from Playburst Crawlers. We also saw... we also saw the Redemptor Dreadnought and the Leviathan Dreadnought drop its Withering Power, but they, Tom, now are facing some combat, or at least the Redemptor. The Redemptor probably doesn't mind getting in a fight with the Blight Lords, but it's not going to push them all off the objective.
No, but equally, I don't think the Blight Lords push a Redemptor off either, really. You can't really push these things off because they've got -1 damage inbuilt as well, which ironically really screws Death Guard because you've got a lot of 2 damage stuff in there, mate. So you're not exactly going to do as much damage as you normally hope, and especially against these things, it's just going to be a bit of a tar pit, really, isn't it? A word I have not used in a long time. But it is one of those words which we are now using because there are a lot of tar pits in this game. It felt a bit like Nikos moved forwards because he had turn advantage, and also Scrivo gave him a turn by not pushing the button a little bit. But now we're going to end up with a bit of a trench line here where no one's really going to move, and that favors Nikos just fine.
The slowest moving force you're ever likely to see.
You know the hare and the tortoise?
Yes.
Imagine you just had 2 tortoises. I feel like that's what we've got. That's about how we're doing. So Scrivo is going to stay on this right-hand side here and push up a little bit, mainly because he's stuck there and it feels like you can't really do 2 sides of a triangle at this point. So you need to start making your way across here and charge that Rhino through a crater. That could be interesting. See how that goes.
Don't forget, this is turn 3. This is turn 3. So if he doesn't make any movements, if he doesn't move on to any objectives this turn, means turn 4 he's also scoring none. Which means the maximum he's going to be able to pull out is turn 5 primaries. And he's still not going to get that anyway because he just doesn't have the board.
And he needs more as well because Nikos is so far ahead in both secondaries and primaries. He needs to be dictating the pace. He needs to be pushing the board, and unfortunately, he hasn't been able to do that. But we never said it was just the armies that were slow, Rob. But also, if he goes for it with the Deathwing Knights,
you say the player is slow as well. Are you being rude about John again?
I'm being rude about both of them, mate. It's fine.
Where are these going?
What do you mean? What?
Where are these Terminators in the corner
nowhere, mate. They're his stubborn defiance point. He needs them.
Oh, they're getting out of the way of the Blight bombardment.
We'll just stand here, mate. It's perfectly fine. Yeah, we're not fussed about going towards this Death Guard army, but it's 22 points in the lead.
We've had one of the players jump in the chat and say, see how powerful the Blight bombardment is. It's controlling the objective.
It's controlling the space, mate. If I were Nikos, I would have just put Blight bombardment. Like, I don't know how to ping it, but you know where the crater is right now.
Yeah.
Just put it on the crater so Scrivo just never walks forward. Like, ooh, spooky. We can't go near that. Oh no. I fucking own that shit. You do, Nikos. You do own it.
He's owned it hard. Right, so here we see. Oh, look at this. The Slap Chaplain has made an aggressive run. He's
also the closest model, but luckily he's with some bodyguards, I believe. So I think are these bodyguards? I don't think they're bodyguards. Oh, they're company veterans, aren't they? So they should be fine. I think it's just a bit of an interesting and unfortunate position that Scrivo's in, but the one unit he'd probably want to charge at his opponent is the one unit he's also selected for his stubborn defiance, which also happened to be the one unit in the center of his army he probably wanted to run in at turn 1 and was also furthest away from the stubborn defiance objective. But
so we're now getting the shooting unit with very few combat shots. Moving forward, looking to pick some shots off. He's drawing a line of sight to these unit of Plague Marines here, looking to take them off and hold up this objective when the inevitable 18-hour walk to that objective finally makes it. However, there is a problem. This rhino that you can see right here, that's holding the objective, has got 10 big-ass plague marines. And they've got the big loadout we saw before. They've got plague cleavers. They've got flails. They've got bubonic axes. They've got maces. They've got the whole lot. And I feel like bringing the Leviathan right next to that unit that would love to beat the Leviathan up is a bit of a mistake.
Could you call them a BAP? Big-ass plague marines.
They're big-ass plague marines, the BAPs. Yeah, some BAPs.
Here come the BAPs. Of a Leviathan with no close combat weapons is now the thermist up aboard. We love it.
He's one of the fastest. So I would hope
it is one of the fastest. It's true.
I would quite like to see the Redemptor moving up the board at some point. That would also be fairly useful. There's a good lesson, though, Tom, to take away from this whole game, ultimately, is that the aggressive... You take the center, of course.
I've been saying this for editions. Just
you are now Tom take the center late and Tom TTC.
Just always take the center.
Yeah, always take the center.
The center is premium. It's all that we do.
I mean, to be fair though, like as much as the center has been a good conversation, of course, the flanks. It was interesting that John didn't deploy very heavily down one flank. He deployed super heavily in the middle, ish, and then never went to the middle, and then didn't.
And then just went to the flank.
To the side.
You can't help it. Oh, mate. Oh, the absolute state of this. I want to see what Scrivo does for his assault phase, though. I don't know how far that Leviathan is away from that Rhino, but I feel like it's not getting charged. To be fair, anyway.
Maybe he's coming up against Grand Wizard Nick. Like, this is not easy.
You can't call him that on the internet. You can't call him that on the internet, Rob.
Okay, I didn't mean it like that, of course. I meant...
That's what people think.
All right, table boss as well. Apparently, can't say that at all. He's the Grand Magos, the Grand Magos,
the Grand Magos,
the Grand Magos. I'll say it correctly.
Good choice.
But he's playing 4D chess while everyone else is playing whatever else. He's dropping blight bombardments down, and we weren't expecting that at all. Let's be honest.
What's the name of Horus's flagship on the? What was it? In fact, what was it? In fact, I'm going to find Mortarian's flagship. That's what we're going to call it.
Oh, the one that he gave to.
One that he virus bombed. It's called the Endurance. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he is enduring quite heavily right now. I mean, what's he lost? Doing? Yeah, he's lost his character over here, the Lord of Contagion. He's lost his unit of 10 plague marines, and I think that's it, mate. He's lost a couple of Blight Lord Terminators, but who really gives a shit? No one cares.
No one. I think ultimately at the end of this turn, I think we're gonna be able to just call this match.
I agree.
It's competently over for the Dark Angels. I mean, there are some turn 4-5 players, but not anything to score the points. And the points on the board are just gonna take forever, really. To the endurance, yeah, Scott.
I feel like we can come back at 1 a.m. and we'll still be playing and think we're streaming.
but the conclusion is the same.
Yeah, we'll just come back in like 3 hours, and like they'll think we've been streaming the entire time. We're just watching as Scrivo slowly moves like multiple Deathwing Terminators just around in a circle.
Why didn't he put any of them in Deep Strike is the real question. Like, none of them threatening Deep Strike.
I mean, you didn't need to threaten anything. You just stand there and say, if you charge me, I will kill you. Like, I don't think you needed to Deep Strike, especially as a chaplain doesn't have +2 to charge on its, I mean, even that doesn't work, but so... I feel like
says, so the Deathwing have limited movement and used it to move from the center to the top objective, and now are trying to make it back to the center. It makes complete sense.
If Scrivo went first, the play would have just been to bum rush the center of the board and just
if he went second, though, I feel like the tactic would have been to just bum rush the center of the board.
I disagree. I think the tactic would have been, if he went second, to just push onto these two objectives that are close to him, and then in his turn 5, bum rush the center of the board to get the sweet 15 points.
Sweet 15.
Yeah,
I see what you mean. So splits.
A
Right,
lot about
so
loves these Blight Lords, doesn't it? By the way, Rob,
that
doesn't it?
does. We're into the
Yeah.
shooting phase now, so that's the movement. We did see that unit of. We did see some takesy backsies at the top. Super fine, casual game, just between friends. So we saw that unit of Blight Lords move. Not Blight Lords, sorry, Deathwing Terminators move back. We're seeing the Leviathan Dreadnought now unload. Unload.
All over the Blight Lords.
Yeah, into the Blight Lord Terminators. And he's been responsible for doing some pretty significant damage last turn. Don't forget, he's going to activate the stratagem, so he's going to do mortals on 6s to hit. And there's a lot in there. Azrael is nearby, so he will be re-rolling to hit. So there is going to be some... yeah, that's core. Leviathan? Is Leviathan core? Actually, maybe not. Never mind. Probably not. But the Redemptor is the one that's miles away.
Fantastic way. Just brilliant.
It's really solid.
Like, has Redemptor moved this entire game, by the way?
No, not once.
It's actually kind of good in close combat. I believe it's flat 3 damage.
It's good in combat.
But it's a well pushing.
He could have been walking up and support. He could have been walking up and supporting the Deathwing. Oh, so Leviathan Dreadnought is a shot at the Plague Surgeon, but the Plague Surgeon survived everything so far. The Volkites. So the Volkite's done 2 mortal wounds to the Plague Surgeon. I don't know why he's targeting the Plague Surgeon, but sure.
It's okay. It's okay. We've
2 saves, 2 mortal wounds. If that's an additional 2 mortal wounds, he's dead. He's only got the 4 wounds. So he rolled 2 6-up DPRs for his saves. So to 2 regular 6-up saves and 2 DPR. So he's taken 2 wounds in total. 1 Terminator down to 1 wound.
Yeah, so he's not targeting the Plague Surgeon, it's just a Plague Surgeon providing him with DPR.
Yeah, that's all.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, right? Because actually, over the Plague Surgeon, I'd trade that out. Like, 6-up DPR versus the ability to get +1 toughness and -1 to hit on a unit. I'd take that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd take the -1 to hit.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you want the Psyker over it. The Malignant Plaguecaster is so important to this army. I feel like it's one of those things that's absolutely mandatory at this point.
Yeah, however, Nick taking a double patrol, so not having the range. So the Redemptor Dreadnought now. So just like to point out, the Leviathan Dreadnought done shooting, not killed a single Terminator, not killed the Plague Surgeon either. We're now onto the Redemptor. The Redemptor firing into the Blightlord Terminators to try and take those out. Again, it's really important that that unit of Blightlord Terminator stays alive. He's also overcharging it because that unit of Blightlord Terminators, of course, is While We Stand, While We Fight for the Mortarian's Anvil army. So While We Stand, While We Fight for the Death Guard. Super important that you keep that Blightlord Terminator alive because that's going to be some more points on the board at the end of the game. While We Stand, While We Fight also probably going to be achieved by the Dark Angels as well on those units. Leviathan Dreadnought there is one of them, and those units of Terminators also. Oh, actually, no. One of the Terminators is going to go down, Tom, I think.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's pretty impressive. I'm surprised he managed to do that. So we've lost a Blightlord Terminator, but, you know, it's just going to be touch and go whether or not Nikos gets these points for Blightlord Terminators. I had him down as probably not getting the Blightlord Terminator While We Stand, While We Fight. But if he does, that's another bonus 5 points for Nikos, which is effectively a 27-point lead that he has over Scrivo at the minute. But, you know, we've got 2 turns left after this one for Scrivo. It doesn't look like he's going to be getting anything done in melee, and the Leviathan has already fired. So you've got to remove 3 of these Blightlord Terminators in 2 turns, which is absolutely doable of what Scrivo's got
Very
left.
doable. Oh, and 2 now. Only 2 to kill.
1 a turn. That's a pretty good rate.
That's
Especially with the Leviathan not even firing.
However, there is a good old advance run over onto this objective actually, but most importantly into cover. So if he does make a couple of good rolls, he could maybe get himself in cover. However, that Leviathan Dreadnought, I think, isn't going to get much of an opportunity. JJ, big love to you. Tom Whitbrook, he does need more Death Shroud, agreed. There is those 10 Marines who've just been patiently sat inside that Rhino.
I feel like they come out and they cut base screen.
Yeah, of course. I think they're going to go to smash into the Leviathan, to be honest.
They might as well.
Which is also a
5-point
swing. That's a While We Stand, While We Fight choice. to take out, but also they'll protect his own Blight Lords at the same time, so it's a double win. Dudard, a big supporter of Scrivo, thinks he's got it, just letting him have a chance in his narrative play mode. That's fair. Tom, you do need to build some crawlers. Tom Whitbrook, by the way, if you follow him on Instagram, he's doing a lovely job on painting up some Death Guard at the minute, which has been lush. I've been enjoying that. I've been enjoying seeing all of the Death Guard armies. Drukhari not too far away, Tom? Looking forward to that.
Yeah, it should be fun. Although is it the next book actually? Apparently, the Drukhari Facebook pages have been having a bit of a so I need to go and watch that because that sounds hilarious. Apparently, they hate it. It appears that you can't ever give anything to any faction without them crying about how it's worse. So we'll have to have a look and see what they're up to because they seem like they are almost as ill as the Death Guard people. Maybe they're even worse. We'll have to see. I'm looking forward to doing my tier list of
Honestly,
ill.
I'm enjoying watching this Death Guard army play. I really, really am. I can absolutely see the reasoning for the Plagueburst Crawlers. We talked about it on the show as well. I can see why you would take one. I'm not really certain. I'm very confident on the two here. 180 points. We could have seen some pivot in the list to some other options in here. I think, that unit of 10 Plague Marines that was with the Plagueburst Crawler could have moved, but then they've done some good work. We lost the Talonmaster. That was pretty useful. But going into this talking about the kind of overall meta, and Tom, unfortunately, not the painting meta, but specifically talking about...
that's a shame. It's my favourite meta.
Talking about the 9th edition meta, which seems to be very Terminator heavy. So we're talking about 2-up armor saves, 4-up invuln saves, loads of multi-wound models. I do wonder what something like a Plagueburst Crawler's D6 shots is really worth in that kind of meta. I do wonder what matchups it brings value to. Ultimately, don't get me wrong. One definitely I could see there being a reason for. Keep some backline units honest, and it's super useful. Like in the mirror against these Poxwalkers, they'd be chewing into the Poxwalkers in a mirror, for example. But into a Terminator heavy meta, which it's going to be Death Guard, Terminators, Dark Angels, Terminators. We're seeing Blade Guard vets, if you're talking about others, or even just 2-up armor saves floating across the board in things like Blood Angels. I could absolutely see that they don't really have a place, if that makes sense. I do wonder if we couldn't use these points more efficiently somewhere else, ultimately. But they've done some good work across the course of the game. So, yeah, I do wonder, what do you think about the Terminator heavy meta for 9th edition?
I'm going to be honest, I haven't really encountered it, although I do feel like it is somewhat in existence, especially with regards to Marine players. I feel like the top factions at the minute are Harlequins, Sisters, and then probably Admech and Space Marines underneath it. And both of those factions don't really have that kind of innate 2+, say, I'm just going to stand there and be annoying. They do have the ability to trade units very, very well and hit you where they want to hit you, though. Which is a strength in and of itself when you're up against lots of armies that have that kind of strength, even if they've got a 2-up save, where they physically can't move around as much, as we're seeing with the Scrivo list. So I don't know if I'd have enjoyed it if that was all it was, but I feel like it's got sufficient answers and we're seeing them in the form of those factions.
Yeah, agreed. So, not long for this game. We're going to conclude this game pretty soon, I think. We're going to wrap it up because it's all but done. We're just waiting for this final turn of shooting to see what we end up with, and then I think we could call it as game over for the Death Guard.
For the Death Guard, I think the Death Guard have got
this, Guard. Yeah, absolutely. We'll see. We're just in the combat phase now, aren't we not?
Not entirely sure. So it looks like we are still shooting the Deathwing Terminators at the Rhino. I would assume it's this 4-wounded one on the right-hand side. Just try and get rid of that screen because you're not going to be able to charge it. The Deathwing Knights aren't going to go for it. They want their points. And you're also not going to charge it with the Deathwing Terminators either. A couple of shots are going to these Plague Marines as well at the back. They've killed one, even through with 2 wounds and the toughness 5. That's pretty impressive. Not bad going there. But I feel like those kills aren't really going to achieve anything. At this point, I'd probably, if I was Nikos, take this Rhino C up here, push it into the gap right in front of this Leviathan, and then use the rest of the Plague Marines to fan out and screen off the rest of the army. So there's physically no way for Scriver to get past these two L's in the center before anything like turn 5 itself. So, I mean, yeah, I feel like Nikos has got this one pretty much on lock.
Yeah, there's not even a dice situation in this scenario. It's just a full. It's a full. I mean, Max he's going to be able to score 30 points, turns 4 and 5, but I don't think he's even going to get those. I think he's going to get hemmed in now on this turn. We're going to see this Rhino pile out and smash. So yeah, I think it's just not going to happen at all, and we're just going into another 15-point score in this situation so that's going to take us straight up to 37 points for the Death Guard against still 0 for the Dark Angels, with so hold on, big play though, 10-inch charge. This could change the shape of it. Deathwing Bodyguard. Oh, it's a 7. He's got to spend
That's
a CP to re-roll it.
reroll. You've got to do it at this point.
You've got to do it.
It's the only chance you're going to get into the center is this early. In fact, at all, because I feel like Nikos is just going to fan you out for the rest of the game if you don't make this charge.
Here we go. He needs a 10.
Yeah,
it's not.
That's a 5.
It's a 5. That's the game there. That's the game. Not getting into the middle means he's not going to score it. So we can just we can call it there. Or John, we'll jump over back to you and me, and we could quickly talk through the game and where we saw it. So yeah, pretty exciting overall. Tom, you got any kind of like thoughts post match? That I know we covered a lot of it during the game. Is there anything there that you thought that was stood out to you?
I feel like Nikos did a really, really good job of punishing Scriver where he made mistakes. I feel like he did a good job of baiting a lot of what Scriver was up to. But the first thing that caused that was really Scriver's mistake in deployment. In terms of, I feel like if he'd reread the secondary that he'd picked from his Dark Angels book in Stubborn Defiance, he might have deployed a little bit differently. Mm-hmm. And because he deployed in the way that he did and then realized what was up, he then overcompensated a bit to try and re-achieve those points, especially in a game where we were talking about how primaries were going to be a bit even and it might come down to secondaries a bit more, when in reality you can get a few more points on those primaries because you're going second. And because you overcompensated, you just lost out on that as well. So I feel like it's a little bit of a struggle for him. But Nikos played very, very well. I was really impressed with how Nikos played. He did a really, really good job of baiting Scriver around and really creating space for himself when he realized that he could capitalize upon this.
Also giving himself options as well, which even we weren't seeing. Giving himself options that if he wanted to, he could take that unit of 10 Plague Marines that he had in the center.
Yeah.
But he held on to that like a back pocket play the whole game, just being able to be like, I'm going to push these into the middle when I want to, if I even want to, or I can use them to pivot if the combat at the bottom of the board ends up going badly, which I think is interesting. Again,
but he also knew exactly the mistake Scriver was going to make by not charging into that center at the early point, and instead fully committing on the right hand side. And he
giving him the big bait. He gave him the Lord as well. He gave him the Lord of Contagion. I've seen Nick do this several times before. He's like, people love killing stuff. Give someone to kill, and they'll go kill it. And I was like, that's a good point.
You need to make sure that you kill it. Yeah, exactly. And I don't know if you're saying, I don't know. I think the other guys will live through all that. You'd have to really commit everything to kill him. And Scriver went, you know what, you're right. And then he did it. And Nikos was just like, nice. It's always really like fascinating just watching it. Like, always. I prefer the commentary personally because I feel like it adds a lot more to the game that you wouldn't get otherwise. From just watching two people play, because they've both got a vested interest in not telling each other things. Yeah. But at the same time, if you know what you're looking for in terms of above the table mannerisms, there's a few things that you can just pick up on, and it's like, yeah, this is where he won the game because he's got in his head now. It's over.
Yeah, it's super interesting. Well, listen, I hope you guys have enjoyed this. Tom, thank you very much for co-commentating with me.
It's a pleasure, man. It's been really fun. I really enjoyed it. Actually.
Yeah, same here. Also, big shout out to John and Nick for playing a binder of a game, and of course, the ever wonderful and gorgeous voice in my ear is my lovely intern Matt, my man, my wingman, the Batman to my Robin. So thank you to Matt for providing us with all the info. .com, The Blader, thank you everyone for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to join me again tomorrow for the stream streak. And of course, you can join us for the rest of the week. More 40k content, more interesting content coming soon. It was a great game. I loved it. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Leave some comments below. Thanks everyone for supporting us, and we'll see you guys soon. Have a great day.